An open clearing sat at the foot of Spirit Springs Mountain. This was where the Berkeley Humanities tour bus and the other student cars were parked. Now, the first two groups of children from the Hope School who had made it down the mountain were huddled on the bus, seeking shelter from the rain and the cold. The villagers were with them, comforting the frightened kids. But none of the Berkeley students had any intention of getting on the bus. Wrapped in raincoats and holding umbrellas, they stood in the clearing, braving the downpour, their necks craned anxiously as they stared up the mountain. Claire Sterling stood at the very front of the crowd. She didn't even bother with an umbrella, letting the torrential rain lash her face and soak her clothes. She forced her eyes wide, staring intently at the point where the pitch-black mountain road disappeared into the darkness. Lily Lou fought through the wind and rain to her side, draping a spare raincoat over Claire's shoulders and whispering, "It's going to be okay. The villagers went up to get them a while ago. Leo and the others will be down any second." Claire seemed not to hear her. Her gaze remained locked on the end of the mountain path. Just then, the faint, familiar roar of a diesel engine echoed from around a bend up the mountain. A beam of light cut through the darkness. In an instant, it ignited the hope of everyone present. When two diesel utility carts, their beds packed with people, came barreling down the mountain, the sight sent a wave of ecstatic cheers and screams through the waiting crowd. "They're down!" From their dorm, room 205, Molly Tang, Quinn Liu, and Jay Jiang saw Marco Shaw and Leon in the first cart and practically jumped for joy. "I see them. It's Marco, and Leon and Dylan. Oh my God, honey." Molly's eyes instantly reddened, and with a sob in her voice, she threw herself at Leon. The other students spotted Alex in the second cart and let out another cheer. "Alex," as his fellow advisor, Ms. Sullivan rushed forward and, taking an unprepared Alex completely by surprise, wrapped him in a tight hug. She gritted her teeth and spoke into his ear. "Next time you shove me onto a bus without my permission, I will end you." Before Alex could stammer out an apology, Ms. Sullivan leaned in again. She pressed a gentle kiss to his cheek. When she pulled back, she looked at her dumbstruck colleague, her eyes a little red, and smiled. "Welcome back." Both carts were down. As everyone hugged and celebrated, Claire's eyes scanned the arrivals, and her pupils suddenly constricted. "Where's Leo?" Marco, who had just taken a sip of hot water, quickly spoke up. "Bertha, don't worry. Leo and that teacher, Sun E, are right behind us. They're in the third cart. They'll be here any second." Just then, a boy stumbled down from the bus, crying out, "Where's my brother? I can't find my little brother. He's not down yet." The villagers recognized him, their faces paling. "Isn't that little Six's brother? Was your brother at the school, too?" Marco froze. Their two carts had left first. He had no idea what happened after. "Who? Little Six? I don't know. The only ones left up there were Leo and Sun." Before he could finish, the roar of another diesel engine echoed from the mountain road. Everyone whipped their heads around. The third utility cart's headlights cut through the rain as it sped down the mountain, two figures visible in the back. The crying boy's eyes went wide. One second he was sobbing. The next his face was alight with joy. "My brother. That's my brother." Everyone else stared, and as they looked closer, they saw Sun E holding little Six tightly in his arms. It really is Sun E and little Six. Marco, Leon, and the others suddenly realized what that meant, and their faces turned ashen. "Wait a minute. That's not right. Where's Leo?" Claire ran forward, stumbling as she reached the cart. Her fingers, gripping the railing, turned white from the force of her grip. She scanned the cargo bed, finding no third person. A wave of dizziness washed over her, and she almost collapsed. She bit her lip, forced her head up, and looked at Sun E, trying to keep her voice from trembling. "Where is Leo?" Sun E's face was deathly pale. His lips trembled, and the moment he opened his mouth, his eyes reddened. "Leo. He went back to school to save little Six. When he was coming back, the flash flood hit. He threw little Six to me from a distance. He didn't have time to make it himself." Hearing those last words, Claire's mind went blank. She watched Sun Yi's mouth open and close, his eyes red, still saying something, but she couldn't hear a thing. It was as if a blunt object had been driven into her heart. It seized. Then, slowly it began to ache. The pain spread through her 1,000 tiny needles, making her whole body tremble. No, this feeling. It was like a huge piece of her heart had been ripped out again. It was a void so vast she couldn't even feel pain anymore, just a hollow, chilling numbness that froze her to the bone. The crowd was stunned into silence. A moment later, the shock wore off, and a wave of horror rippled through them. The girls covered their mouths, their eyes turning red. "Leo, how could this happen?" The guys from room 520, Marco, Leon, and Dylan, were in a daze, their minds buzzing, scalps tingling as if they were about to explode. Leo, he didn't make it down? Shit, that's impossible. Marco slammed his towel on the ground and spun toward the villagers, roaring, "Give me a cart. I'll drive. I'm going up to get my brother." The old village chief's face was grim. He spat, "Damn it all. Everyone stay back. I'll get the boy myself." He started toward one of the carts. But at that exact moment, a tremendous roar echoed from the mountaintop. They all looked up to see a massive wall of water, mud, and debris thundering down the mountain. It consumed the entire road in an instant, crashing down and exploding at the base in a torrent of mud and spray that shot higher than man's head. The flash flood was ferocious, its power terrifying. Everyone's face drained of color once more. Several villagers tackled the chief, holding him back, pleading desperately. "Chief, you can't go up there. Look at that flood. The cart doesn't have the power to get through that, even if the boy is... In this situation, he's probably..." He couldn't finish the sentence, but everyone understood what he meant. Marco and the others slumped to the ground, defeated. Leo, son E, consumed by guilt, slammed his fists against his own legs. "It's my fault. It should have been me. I should have been the one to go back for him." Just then, a car horn blared. Everyone instinctively turned toward the sound and saw the headlights of the black Maybach, parked next to the bus, switch on. When they looked back, they saw the slender figure of a girl walking toward it. Quinn, Jade, and Molly rushed to her side. "Claire, what are you doing?" Despite the pain from her still healing ankle, Claire's steps were labored but steady. Her voice was unervingly calm. "Going up." 2 words. They stunned everyone into silence. The villagers, snapping out of their shock, erupted in disbelief. "That pretty little thing. She's gonna drive up the mountain herself? That's suicide." The advisors, Alex and Ms. Sullivan, were among the first to rush over and block her path. "Claire, don't do this. It's too dangerous to go up there now. You need to calm down." Claire lifted her head. Her beautiful face was devoid of any expression. Her eyes swept over them. "My man is up there. How do you expect me to be calm?" The next second, her voice rose sharp and clear. "Get out of my way." The icy authority in her tone was like the edge of a blade. It froze everyone in place. Only Lily Lou, gritting her teeth, stepped forward and grabbed Claire's wrist, pleading one last time. "Claire, I know you want to save Leo, but I'm begging you. Look at the situation. Going up there now is just throwing your life away." Claire turned to look at Lily, and a small, sad smile touched her lips. "I told you before, this life, it's all his." Lily froze, her grip slowly loosening. Claire continued toward the Maybach. The old village chief's expression shifted, and he suddenly called out to her. "A Maybach has some power. Maybe you can make it. Girl, how about I go with you?" Claire had reached the car door. She glanced back at him. "No need. One life is enough." She opened the door and slid into the driver's seat. Just as she was about to close it, there was a frantic flapping of wings, and a chubby parrot dove headfirst into the car. It dug its talons into the steering wheel, looked up at its owner, and let out a series of determined squawks. "Count me in. Count me in." Claire paused for a moment. Then she smiled. "Okay, let's go save your emperor." The next moment, the engine ignited. In the torrential downpour, the Maybach's internal combustion engine began to roar, a deep, resonant growl that vibrated in everyone's ears and hearts. Gripping the steering wheel, Claire took a deep breath. She looked up, her gaze fixed on the inky black mountain road and the raging flash flood that poured down it. She whispered, "Wait for me," and she stomped on the gas. The engine screamed in fury. The black Maybach shot forward like an arrow, hurtling toward the mountain road. The wind howled. The rain fell like a wrathful god. Through the ink-black night and the curtain of rain, 2 powerful beams of light tore through the resistance, illuminating the path ahead. On the winding mountain road, the flood surged, a torrent of destruction flowing down. But a black shadow, like a bolt of lightning, let out an even more deafening roar as it charged against the current. The Maybach tore through the flooded road. The wheels spun furiously, crushing loose rocks and mud, throwing up waves of spray higher than a man's head. It was cleaving the waves. It was a fearless, headlong charge into the jaws of death. Inside, Claire gripped the steering wheel, her face calm and composed, but her eyes burned with 2 blazing fires. The pedal was pressed to the floor. Racing the flood? No. She was going to snatch him back from the heavens themselves. At the top of the mountain, amidst the torrential rain, another figure was also racing. The wheels of a bicycle spun at a frantic pace. Leo, covered in mud and grime, had a bloody gash on his face from flying debris, but it didn't stop him from pumping the pedals with all his might, carving out a path to survival through the raging flood. 10 minutes ago, he had cheated death. A last-second retreat had saved him from a mudslide. The real miracle was a bicycle, probably washed down from the school, that had floated right to him. It was his only tool, his only hope in this desperate situation. The main path was impossible. He made a split-second decision. He veered onto a side trail, crashing through countless branches and bushes. He didn't know this path, had no idea if it even led down the mountain. But he didn't have time to hesitate, because even if there was only a 1% chance of survival, he would give 100% effort to seize it. Because he had made a promise. Through 1,000 trials and tribulations, he would cut through every obstacle. He had to get back to her side. The flood raged. The path was treacherous and steep. The wheels suddenly slipped, and he lost control, the bike and rider tumbling off the path, crashing hard onto the rocks 2 meters below. Crack! The impact forced a grunt from Leo's lips. His back felt like it had split open. But without a moment's hesitation, he righted the bike, leaped back on, and wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. His smile was savage. Good. 2 more meters down. I'm going down this mountain to see my woman today. Not even God himself can stop me. He slammed his foot down on the pedal, and the bicycle shot forward like lightning once more. A bolt of lightning descended from the mountaintop. A black shadow charged upstream against the flood. The storm raged, thunder cracking through the clouds. The flood was a torrent, but it felt like a grand, fateful reunion. A landslide of rocks tumbled down the road ahead, pelting the Maybach's windshield. Claire jerked the wheel to the side, narrowly avoiding several large boulders. But at nearly 100 miles an hour, even small fragments of rock could shatter the glass. A sharp piece of stone shot through the window with terrifying force and embedded itself in her left shoulder. She let out a muffled grunt. A patch of crimson slowly began to spread, but she kept her grip on the wheel, enduring the throbbing pain in her right ankle, and gritted her teeth, keeping the pedal floored as the Maybach roared onward. On the forest trail, falling trees and sharp branches tore at Leo's clothes, cutting his face and arms. The path was a slick mess of mud. The wheels lost traction again. He crashed again, and he got back up again. He didn't care about the pain or the filth. All that mattered was hurtling through the forest on that bike. Pain, wetness, and cold were sapping the strength from both of them. But if their bodies reached their limits, then their will would carry them through. At that moment, the bicycle broke through the tree line, flying out into the open air. The passenger window of the upstream Maybach rolled down, and Claire screamed, "Reasonable!" The chubby parrot shot out of the window like an arrow from a bow. It spread its wings, flying high into the storm. It scanned the horizon desperately. Then it let out a piercing shriek that echoed through the night. That way! That way! The Maybach fishtailed around a corner, following the parrot's direction, and crashed through the tree line. The bicycle landed hard. Leo looked up and saw the impossible, familiar figure of a parrot flying toward him through the night sky. Emperor! 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 Leo froze. Reasonable. The next second, the roar of an engine echoed from the woods nearby. The battered, scarred black Maybach burst through the trees, leaping into the open and charging right at him. He saw the figure of the girl in the driver's seat. For a moment, Leo was too stunned to process it. Then, shock turned to horrified rage, and he screamed, "Claire Sterling, are you out of your goddamn mind?" The Maybach roared to a stop beside him. Through the passenger window, he saw her. Her long hair was a mess. She was a wreck, but the moment she saw him, her eyes reddened, tears welling up. She bit her lip and yelled back defiantly, "I don't want my life. I want you. Move over. I'm driving. This is insane. I'll let you come up here." "I did. I told you if you didn't come down, I'd come find you." "That's insane. I already had a way down." "Liar. A bicycle can't survive this flood. If I hadn't come up to save you, you'd be dead. You coming up here puts you in danger too. Don't you know you could have died? Then we died together." "Insane." The words flew back and forth in a fraction of a second. As they argued, Leo yanked open the driver's door, and Claire scrambled into the passenger seat. Their movements were seamless, without a moment's hesitation, but their argument only grew more heated. After Leo's final, exasperated shout, Claire lunged forward and slammed her lips against his. Outside, the rain poured down, and the floodwaters crashed against the car. But inside, time seemed to freeze. Disaster raged around them. The wind howled, and lightning split the sky. But in the car, the boy and girl's fierce kiss seemed to forget everything else, casting aside all thought of life and death. It was an act of defiance, a silent mockery of the storm's impotent fury. The kiss lasted only a moment. The next second, they broke apart. Leo's eyes fell on Claire's disheveled hair and the crimson stain spreading across her shoulder. A sharp pain stabbed at his heart. He gritted his teeth. Who was it that told me if they were ever in danger, I shouldn't try to save them? Claire's face was pale from blood loss, but she lifted her chin defiantly. That was the third condition you owed me. Now you owe me 300. Leo took a deep breath. Fine. 300 conditions. We got a lifetime. I'll pay you back slowly. As he spoke, he gripped the steering wheel and stomped on the gas, roaring, reasonable. Lead the way. The parrot, which had been circling above the Maybach, beat its wings and shot up into the night sky, fighting through the torrential rain. It scanned its surroundings, then darted in a specific direction. This way, this way. The Maybach's engine roared to life. The wheels spun. The next second, it shot forward like an arrow, following Reasonable's lead, and plunged back in the forest. The flood raged. The rain danced wildly in the wind and lightning. The night was dark and oppressive, the trees swaying like demons. Yet, through it all, the violent roar of an engine echoed, and the black Maybach, a phantom of lightning, tore through the forest. Its powerful white headlights shattered the curtain of rain, illuminating the path ahead. A parrot flew above, screaming itself hoarse. This way. Go this way. Follow me. Follow me. In the driver's seat, Leo's hands were clamped on the wheel, his eyes fixed on the path, his foot never leaving the gas. He expertly weaved between massive tree trunks and dodged the debris and branches that flew at them from all sides. In the passenger seat, Claire's face was ashen. The wound in her shoulder throbbed, and a cold chill spread through her with the blood loss. But she seemed oblivious to her own injuries. She tilted her head slightly, watching the focused, determined face of the boy in the driver's seat. A small smile played on her lips. Even if the world was ending, even if a flood was trying to swallow them whole, just being by his side brought a strange sense of peace, a comforting warmth. Her eyelids grew heavy, starting to flutter. Her head began to nod. Leo caught it out of the corner of his eye, and his pupils contracted. Don't sleep. Stay with me. A wave of drowsiness washed over her, and she mumbled, not sleeping, just closing my eyes for a second. Leo gritted his teeth, wrestling the Maybach through the treacherous terrain while his mind raced. Let's talk. I'll tell you a story. Once upon a time, there was this unlucky idiot named Leo Hammer. In high school, he was a total simp. The drowsiness grew heavier. Claire's head lolled to the side, resting against the window, her consciousness fading. Leo sped up his story. Then one day, he met this girl, half asleep. A faint smile touched her lips. I know. He met CL. He cut her off instantly. He met Sarah Lynn. Claire's eyes snapped open. The drowsiness vanished, replaced by a murderous glare. What's Sarah Lynn? To hell with Sarah Lynn. The floodwaters were rising. Leo was doing everything he could to steer the Maybach through the shallower parts, but the engine warning light on the dashboard was already flashing an ominous red. The once pristine car was now covered in scratches and dents. And of course, their luck got worse. Just as they found another trail that looked like it would lead them down the mountain, a deafening crash echoed from ahead. Another section of the path had collapsed. A torrent of mud and rocks slid down the mountainside, piling up into a 2-meter-high barrier of boulders and broken trees. The path was completely blocked. Hope seemed to vanish. The obstacle was too high for the Maybach to cross. In the air, Reasonable flapped his wings in a panicked frenzy. In the car, Leo's pupils shrank. He glanced at Claire. She was already drifting off again, her beautiful face as pale as paper. Gritting his teeth, Leo wrenched the steering wheel. Reasonable. Turn around. The next second, the engine roared again. The Maybach executed a dangerous, screeching U-turn on the narrow path. The car was now facing back up the mountain. Feeling the lurch of the car, Claire forced her eyes open. Leo, he took a deep breath. Just hang on. Leave the rest to me. As he spoke, a look of grim determination flashed in his eyes. If they couldn't go down this way, they'd find another way. First, they'd go up. He stomped on the gas again. This time, the Maybach charged back up the mountain, straight into the flood. The car shook violently. The force of the water felt like it would crush them. In the passenger seat, half conscious, Claire mumbled, Leo, I think I pissed off those spirits in the sanctuary. They really hold a grudge. This is serious payback. Leo gritted his teeth. To hell with their spirits. Anyone associated with that place. They're not invited to the wedding. Hold on. His foot slammed the pedal to the floor. The Maybach roared, accelerating into a black blur, charging straight for the summit. The sound of the engine nearly drowned out the roar of the flood. It was a battle against the heavens. Amidst the lightning and thunder, a war between kings was being waged on the winding mountain road. The rain fell like a wrathful god. On the mountainside, inside the Sanctuary of Awakening, the room was a wreck. A flash of lightning illuminated the statues of the Taoist deities. Their expressions were cold and indifferent, majestic and severe. On the road, inside the Maybach, Leo's face was set with savage determination, his eyes burning with two raging fires. Who gives a damn about your spirits? My woman is right here next to me. Today, even if all the gods of heaven and earth try to stop me, I'm getting us down this mountain. The Maybach tore through the flood, racing toward the summit. At a familiar fork in the road, it drifted into a sharp turn, then pointed back downhill. Ahead was the main path the utility carts had used earlier. It was still blocked by a pile of rocks, but after several waves of mud and debris had washed over it, a small, sloping ramp had formed. A glint appeared in Leo's eyes. He took a deep breath, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. He spoke softly, as much to the car as to himself. This one is on us. The car's frame seemed to vibrate in response. The next second, Leo's gaze turned sharp as a razor. He stomped the accelerator to the floor. The engine howled. In that instant, tens of thousands of parts roared in unison. The black Maybach became a bolt of lightning, screaming as it charged the stone ramp. Reasonable swooped down from the sky and landed triumphantly on the hood ornament, spreading his wings and letting out a piercing cry. Giddy up! The parrot's shriek, mixed with the engine's furious roar, propelled the Maybach up the ramp. For a single, breathtaking moment, its two powerful headlights broke through the rain and darkness, pointing straight at the heavens. It was a declaration of war. The night was a heavy shroud. The colossal form of Spirit Springs Mountain seemed to vanish into the wind and rain, an immense, silent, and solemn presence. One could only see a wall of blackness, occasionally illuminated for a fleeting second by a flash of lightning, revealing the raging floodwaters pouring down the winding road. The sound was growing more terrifying, tightening the knot of dread in everyone's stomach, because there was still no sign of the boy and girl coming down the mountain. At the base, in the clearing, more people were gathering. Students who had been staying in Spirit Springs Town had heard the news, and dozens of town residents had rushed over to help. Urgine Qian held a phone to his ear, shouting over the storm. "Hello, Uncle Ninegold. It's me, Urgine. Is your helicopter still around Berkeley? I need to borrow it. The damn sky's having a meltdown. It's causing a flash flood. Me and Mr. Qian just met these two kids who are trapped on the mountain. I gotta go get him. Hello. Hello. What is this crappy signal?" He wasn't the only one trying to find a solution. The town's fire department and rescue team had arrived, but one look at the severe weather and the force of the flood, and their faces grew grim. They shook their heads. 20 minutes, half an hour ago, maybe there was a chance. But now, going up the mountain was just a needless sacrifice. The fire chief, in full uniform, hurried over, his voice urgent and serious. "You can't stay here at the base, either. The next wave of the flood will be even stronger. It's not safe here. Pack up. You need to evacuate with us." At his words, a group of Berkeley students led by Marco Shaw and Quinn Liu grew frantic. "We're not leaving. Sir, please, just let us wait a little longer. Our friends are still up there. We know they're about to come down." The advisors, Ms. Sullivan and Alex, stepped forward and spoke quietly with the chief. "How about this? You and your team evacuate the villagers and the other students first. We have our own car. We'll just wait. Just 5 more minutes." The fire chief's brow furrowed as he shook his head forcefully. "No, the next wave could come at any time. I'm responsible for every single one of you." The old village chief slammed a hand on his thigh. "Damn it all, you all go. I'm going up one more time. I can't let those 2 kids die on our mountain." Just then, at the front of the crowd, Lily Liu let out a gasp of utter disbelief and joy. "Look, everybody look, up on the mountain. There's a light." Everyone in the clearing instinctively looked up, and then they saw something so stunning it would be seared into their memories for the rest of their lives. In the gloomy darkness, a light suddenly appeared on the once pitch-black mountain. It tore through the rain and the night, speeding down toward them. A bolt of lightning split the sky, illuminating the road. There, on the treacherous, winding path, with the floodwaters raging behind it, a battered Maybach was flying down the mountain like a black thunderbolt, cleaving the waves, charging fearlessly forward. No one could believe their eyes. But the next moment, the crowd snapped out of their shock and erupted into a deafening roar. Marco, Leon, and Dylan were ecstatic, almost losing their minds. "There are 2 people in the car. It's Leo. Leo and Bertha are back." The Berkeley students were overcome with joy. Holy shit, Leo, you legend. Everyone was screaming, cheering, their eyes glued to the black Maybach as it raced the flood, yelling encouragement at the top of their lungs. Come on, faster, go, go, go. Finally, under the watchful eyes of everyone present, the black Maybach, its engine roaring, reached the base of the mountain and screeched to a halt in a sharp, sideways drift. The crowd's cheering fell silent for a moment. Only the Maybach's engine continued to rumble, a low growl like the exhausted panting of a warrior after a great battle. In the silence, they saw the driver's side door open. Leo stepped out, carrying Claire in his arms. Both were covered in cuts and bruises, utterly battered. But Leo's eyes were still sharp and bright. Only when he looked down at the girl in his arms did his expression soften into warmth. We're here. The girl leaned against his chest, her face pale and weak, but as she looked up at him, a smile touched her lips. She reached up and wrapped her arms around his neck. Leo leaned down and kissed her, as if they would never let go. The next second, the crowd erupted in cheers and screams once more. That night, all the adults and children from Pending Village and the Hope School were safely evacuated and settled in Spirit Springs town. The injured were sent to the hospital. That, of course, included Leo and Claire. Fortunately, neither was seriously hurt. Leo looked like a wreck, but his injuries were all superficial. The worst was a gash on his arm that required 6 stitches. The rest just needed to be cleaned and disinfected. Claire's most serious wound was from the piece of rock that had shattered the windshield and lodged in her shoulder. She had lost a lot of blood, which looked terrifying, but after the wound was cleaned, stitched, and she was put on a 4-drip, she fell into a deep sleep. According to the doctor, the young lady has a guardian angel. If that piece of rock had been an inch higher, lower, or to the left, the consequences would have been unthinkable. Leo, sitting by her bedside, heard the doctor's words. He gently took his girlfriend's hand, looked at the matching red wishing bracelets on their wrists, and smiled. Yeah, the saints were watching over us. The next day, she woke up in her hospital bed. While eating an apple her boyfriend had peeled for her, she listened as he recounted the doctor's assessment. She lifted her wrist to look at the red cord and nodded in agreement. The saints are good. We'll go back to the chapel on Serenity Peak next month and light some more candles. And while we're there, find out if the saints can beat up the spirits from that old sanctuary. If not, we'll send Mr. Joan to help. After a night of sleep and in 4-drip, Claire's energy was clearly returning. Leo relaxed seeing her improve and was able to fill her in on the situation. As expected, Pending Village and the Hope School on Spirit Springs Mountain had been completely buried by the mudslides. But in a stroke of incredible luck, every single villager and child had escaped unharmed. In fact, the only ones seriously injured in the entire ordeal were the power couple currently occupying the hospital room. Claire frowned, looking at her boyfriend. Leo, I think we might be cursed. How does trouble follow us everywhere we go? Leo laughed, remembering the thought that had flashed through his mind during the most terrifying moments of the previous night, and he told her about it. The girl pouted. No novel would be that ridiculous and cliché. Then she saw the stitches on his arm, and her brow furrowed with concern. Does it hurt? Stop peeling fruit for me. You need to rest, too. If there really is such a terrible author, Mr. Joe will have to deal with them. Even if there was some fantastical world of novels, the hardworking, kind, and brilliant author who could write such a wonderful story was not the primary target for elimination right now. The immediate concern was the Sterling family's Maybach. During last night's terrifying storm, the little Maybach had been the greatest hero. While saving the young couple, it had paid a heavy price. The windshield was shattered, the body was covered in scars, and the chassis was severely damaged and waterlogged. It was hard for anyone to imagine how a car in that condition could have held on long enough to get them safely down the mountain before finally dying. One could only say that last night, the Maybach had tapped into the ultimate romance of the internal combustion engine and performed an epic miracle. The Maybach will be our wedding car, Claire declared without a second thought, her heart aching for the vehicle. She nearly assigned her father, Charles Sterling, the task of carrying it down the aisle. The other hero of the night, of course, was the great and chubby parrot, Reasonable. It was equally unimaginable how a monk parakeet could have flown so bravely in such a storm, becoming a crucial navigator for its owners. But after his heroic effort, Reasonable was also completely drained. He spent the night lying listlessly on the hospital bed. Looking at him, Leo made a decisive declaration. When we get home, he gets to watch Animal Planet 24/7. Claire, looking at her sleeping parrot, was also filled with love and pity. She gently stroked his round head. And I'll make him a nice meal. The next second, The parrot shot up like he'd been electrocuted, flapping his wings in terror. No need. No need. The movies are fine. The movies are fine. They had been admitted to the hospital late on March 28th. Leo was mostly recovered by the next day, but he stayed with Claire for 2 more days. During that time, a steady stream of visitors came to the room. Their friends from Berkeley, the gang from room 520 and 205, the 2 advisors, and Lily Lou. Lily brought hot soup from a restaurant in town. Placing on a nightstand, the humanities girl looked at the couple and sighed. Now I really believe it. You two. Not even God himself could tear you apart. The children from the Hope School, son E, and the village chief also came by with snacks, fruit, and flowers, nearly filling the entire room. The village chief thumped his chest proudly. When a village is rebuilt, you have to come back. We'll welcome you with drums and gongs. Oh, and that hot spring. We'll reserve it just for you two. It's potent stuff. The missus and I went 7 rounds in their back in our day. He was unceremoniously dragged away by several other villagers before he could finish. Son, he stayed behind. The teacher from the Hope School gave Leo and Claire a deep bow. Thank you. When he looked up, his eyes were red. It's all my fault. I almost got you both. Leo and Claire just smiled and waved it off, telling him not to worry about it. Their eyes met for a moment, though neither knew what the other was thinking, as they looked at the man who, in their past life, had become a celebrated hero. A shared thought arose. In this life, he might never be chosen as one of the state's most inspirational figures. But compared to that honor, living a safe and peaceful life was a much better ending. To be reborn, and to have a hand in changing someone else's fate in the midst of such a crisis. That was its own kind of merit. However, as that thought crossed their minds, both Leo and Claire froze slightly. It was as if something had been touched deep in their hearts. On March 29th, the Berkeley students, led by their advisors, left Spirit Springs town and returned to the city. On March 30th, their friend from room 205 and 520 stayed 1 more day before also saying their goodbyes. On March 31st, after 3 days in the hospital, Claire, having recovered most of her strength, was discharged with Leo by her side. The Maybach had already been shipped back to the city for repairs. Eugene had arranged for a luxury car to take the couple home. At 7:30 p.m., they arrived back at the LNS house. The home was as warm and welcoming as when they had left. But returning after just a few days felt like coming back from another lifetime. Claire remembered something and turned to Leo. It's almost April. Yes, March had finally ended with a heart-stopping finale. A new month was about to begin, and the first day of April was Leo's birthday. On the first morning of April 2008, the sun shone brightly. Waking up on the soft, comfortable friendship bed, Leo stretched and sat up. He glanced to his side and saw that the spot where a certain young lady should have been was empty. It seemed Ms. Bertha Sue had woken up early. Leo went in the bathroom, washed up, and headed downstairs. As he descended, an enticing aroma drifted from the kitchen, making him pause. He followed the scent and found the girl, already up and dressed in casual loungewear, an apron tied around her waist, flipping a fried egg at the stove. Just as he walked in, she slid a perfectly cooked egg onto a plate. She turned to him and smiled. "You're up? Here, try this. I made it myself." As she spoke, she casually brushed a stray strand of hair from her forehead. In that moment, she exuded the mature charm of a young housewife. So thoughtful, it was almost moving. Leo didn't dare move a muscle. The moment he heard the last 4 words, he froze in sheer terror. Who could understand this feeling? Waking up in the morning only to be faced with a life-or-death situation. He nervously eyed the fried egg she was holding out to him. It looked normal. It smelled delicious. If the first 2 categories of sight and smell were fine, that meant the taste was going to be an absolute catastrophe. Unable to resist the expectant look in his girlfriend's eyes, Leo steeled himself and took the plate. With the grim determination of a man facing his execution, he picked up the chopsticks, lifted the egg with a trembling hand, and took a tiny bite. As the tender egg white and runny yolk filled his mouth, Leo's eyes shot open. He looked at Claire in utter disbelief. "You made this?" Claire nodded happily. "I did. How is it?" Leo savored the bite, chewed and swallowed. Then he took another bite and gave her an emphatic thumbs up. Incredible. Although it was still the work of an amateur, the egg was at least a solid 6. 5 out of 10. Compared to Ms. Bertha Sue's usual score of -6. 5, this was a monumental leap forward. Leo was both surprised and delighted, but mostly confused. "How did your cooking skills improve so much all of a sudden?" Claire raised an eyebrow. "Oh, so you're saying I was bad before?" Realization dawned on him, and he quickly backtracked. Oh no, what I meant was, it was great before, but now it's even better. This is so good. The Queen of England herself isn't worthy of eating it. That part was true. If this was her normal cooking level, he'd eat whatever she made. The Queen could have the colorful, chaotic messes. Claire couldn't help but laugh at his flattery, finally revealing the secret. That's the 9th egg. Mr. Chen ate the first 8. He was my taste tester and gave me some pointers. Leo stared. Mr. Chen. He instinctively turned his head and saw a familiar figure sitting on the living room couch. Mr. Chen stood up, wiped his mouth with a napkin, and walked over, greeting Leo casually. Hey, morning. He followed it with a hearty burp. Claire's eggs are all pretty good. The first few were just a little multicolored. I thought they were fine, but not everyone can appreciate that kind of art, so I had her try again. The mystery was solved. Leo looked at Mr. Chen with overwhelming gratitude. What a legend. It had been days since he'd seen him, and the first thing he does is save his life. Eating 8 of Claire's culinary experiments in one sitting. Was this a feat any normal human could accomplish? Son, he didn't deserve that hero award. It should go to Mr. Chen. Mr. Chen had stopped by this morning after hearing about the incident on Spirit Springs Mountain from his relative, Urgine. He wanted to check on them. Seeing his favorite power couple safe and sound, he was relieved. When he heard that his little parrot buddy had also played a key role in the ordeal, Mr. Chen turned to Reasonable and waved a hand magnanimously. Let's go. To the video store. Big Brother's buying you some DVDs. And censored, high-def female parrots. The chubby parrot quivered with excitement and shot into the air, flapping wildly around the living room. Female parrots. Female parrots. Buy DVDs. Buy DVDs. The next second, he landed on Mr. Chen's shoulder, full of vigor. Let's go, Big Brother. Let's go. He seemed even more energetic now than he had on that stormy night. Mr. Chen waved goodbye to Leo and Claire and sauntered out with Reasonable. The couple watched him go with a smile. Claire linked her arm through Leo's and looked up at him with a grin. April 1st. Happy birthday. She stood on her toes and gave him a quick kiss. It dawned on Leo. He laughed. So that's why you got up so early to make an egg? Claire nodded. You have to eat an egg on your birthday. Then she added, and longevity noodles. The feeling of being moved that was welling up in Leo instantly vanished, replaced by a sense of dread. Longevity noodles? You made those too. She gave him a playful glare. Who else? They're already done. I just covered them with a plate. Wait here, I'll bring them out. As he watched her cheerfully walk into the kitchen, Leo swallowed hard and called out nervously, The longevity noodles. Did you have Mr. Chen taste test them? Her voice came from the kitchen. Of course not. He's not the birthday boy. These are just for you. Her perfectly reasonable words were followed by the sound of a plate being lifted. Then, a strange, unidentifiable odor began to waft out of the kitchen. Leo's face paled, and he started to back away. You know what? I suddenly feel a little unwell. I think Kevin's mom is having another baby. Ultimately, he couldn't escape his fate. But when he took a bite of the noodles, he was shocked to find they weren't bad either. They just smelled a little off. Claire finally explained. I called Mrs. Phone and had her walk me through it. She paused, a little embarrassed. It was hard just doing it over the phone. I had to throw out the first 4 or 5 attempts. This is the 6th bowl. Leo understood. He looked at her, his heart swelling with a different kind of warmth, and took her hand. Thank you for going through all that trouble. Claire squeezed his hand back, smiling. It was no trouble. It's your birthday. The birthday boy gets whatever he wants. A thought occurred to her, and she raised an eyebrow. Any wishes or anything you want to do today, just say the word. I'll cooperate. Leo chuckled. What could I possibly want to do? He continued without missing a beat. But since you're offering, I heard we have a vibrating friendship bed in our room. Claire's expression went blank. I also heard there are several bowls of failed noodles in the kitchen trash that haven't been thrown out yet. Care for taste. The threat landed perfectly. All thoughts of friendship beds vanished, and Leo obediently went back to eating his noodles. Watching him, Claire couldn't help but feel a mix of amusement and affection. She hesitated for a moment, then whispered, What's the rush? Some things. Have to wait for tonight. Leo's chopsticks froze midair. He slowly looked up, his eyes wide with disbelief. The girl's cheeks were faintly pink. She shot him a playful, scolding glance. What are you looking at? Eat your noodles. But that single, coquettish glance was enough to leave him completely mesmerized. Today was Tuesday, a school day. But since Leo and Claire were just back from the hospital, they still needed to rest. Their advisors had already called in their absences. This meant the young couple had the entire day to themselves. After breakfast, they decided to walk to a nearby supermarket. For Leo's birthday, They had agreed with their friends from both dorms to keep it simple. Just a lively get-together at the LNS house with good food and drinks. The fridge was empty, so they needed to stock up. They stepped out the front door into the bright morning sun. A light mist still clung to the tree-lined streets of the neighborhood, and the faint scent of flowers drifted from the lawns. It was intoxicating. The couple walked hand in hand, savoring a peace that felt long overdue, as if the terrifying storm from a few days ago had happened in another lifetime. Inside the supermarket, they pushed a cart through the aisles. Claire was in high spirits, walking ahead with her hands behind her back, her steps light. Every so often, she'd grab a bag of chips from a shelf or some lamb slices from the freezer and toss them into the cart. Spotting something up ahead, her eyes lit up. "Oh, they have ribs. Let's get some." She hurried forward excitedly. Leo followed with the cart, calling out, "We still have ribs at home. Don't buy too many." The girl ahead didn't turn around, just waved a hand dismissively. I know, but these look really good." Watching her weave through the aisles, her head bent in concentration as she selected ingredients, Leo couldn't help but smile. A warmth spread through his chest. After coming so close to death just days before, these quiet, peaceful moments felt all the more precious. Compared to the dramatic, novel-like twists and turns they had endured, this, strolling through the neighborhood on a sunny spring morning, browsing a supermarket with his girlfriend, arguing over how many pounds of ribs to buy, seemed mundane. But it was a mundane existence filled with a warmth that was priceless. If he could, he would trade all the thrilling adventures for this. A quiet, warm life like this. He could happily live it for an eternity. After returning home with their groceries, it was just past 10 in the morning. Their friends wouldn't be over until late afternoon. The couple didn't cling to each other. Instead, Claire took out her books and sat at the dining table to catch up on homework, while Leo went into the study to deal with the work projects he'd neglected. He'd already received a string of good news from David Chung at Happy Nest. The website's registered user count had soared past 8 million and was on track to break 10 million within the week. Leo gave him a call. On the other end, David's voice was buzzing with excitement. "Done with your little vacation with the girlfriend? Get to the office in the next couple of days. We need to finalize the next phase of our plan. The future is bright, but there are more battles ahead." Then there was the battle through the Heavens browser game project, which also needed his attention. The web novel was approaching a major climax in its serialization. On Scrollverse, its stats were exploding, and it was showing signs of hitting the top of the charts. He chatted online with the author, Potato. It turned out the guy was on a creative roll, churning out over 10,000 words a day. The protagonist was on a hot streak, and the big showdown was getting closer. Leo was surprised. "You're updating that fast lately?" This wasn't the lazy author he remembered for his past life. Potato's reply was cheerful. "I'm just on fire right now. Mostly because that outline we talked about completely unblocked my thinking for the next arc. The words are just flowing, huh?" Leo considered this. Writing too fast wasn't necessarily a good thing. His game development wasn't moving at the same pace. The best strategy was to launch the game right as the novel hit its peak, maximizing the promotional effect. He typed back to Potato, "It's fine if you slow down a bit. Build up a backlog of chapters. Then, when our game comes out, you could do a massive release." Potato thought about it and agreed it made sense, deciding to dial back his daily word count. Leo, satisfied with his work, closed the chat window. Novel readers are a forgiving bunch. Whether you give them 10,000 words or 2,000, they'll read it. They're kind, benevolent creatures. Besides coordinating with the author, Leo also had to check on the progress of the game's art team. After 4 days on the spring trip and 3 days in the hospital, he hadn't checked in for a week. He opened the AIM chat window for the #1 employee of Mako Entertainment, Ms. Isabella Zhao. Leo typed, "How's it going? Slacking off?" A reply came back from her phone almost instantly. "Isabella, only pigs slack off. I'm working my butt off every day. I don't want to be the team lead anymore. The pressure is killing me." Her words were practically dripping with aggrieved indignation. He could picture it. Knowing her sense of responsibility, being team lead meant she wasn't lording her power over anyone. She was just taking on more work. Now she had to worry about her own art and supervise the quality of everyone else's. Leo felt a pang of sympathy. "You want me to find someone else to be the lead? I can give the bonus to them." The reply was instantaneous. "Isabella, no, I was just kidding. I love being the team lead. I thrive under this kind of pressure." Leo couldn't help but laugh. As he was about to type a reply, another message came through. "Isabella, is it your birthday today?" Leo paused, surprised. "How did you know?" A smug emoji appeared in the chat window. "Isabella, I'm your friend on Happy Nest. I got a notification. Happy birthday." She sent a few cake emojis. Leo felt a genuine sense of warmth and appreciation. He typed back, "Thanks. In that case, you could just consider this month's salary my birthday gift from you." Isabella was stunned into silence. After a long pause, a string of ellipses appeared, her despair palpable even through the screen. Isabella. Boss, I don't want to wish you a happy birthday anymore. Can I take it back?" As noon approached, Leo finished his work and came out of the study. At the dining table, Claire was just putting away her textbooks and homework, rising to her feet for a long stretch. In that moment, her graceful, slender figure was displayed in its full glory, a perfect silhouette that made Leo momentarily lose his train of thought. Claire turned and saw him standing at the study door, staring. She couldn't help but smile. "What are you looking at so intently?" "You," Leo replied, his tone matter-of-fact. The girl looked pleased, raising an eyebrow. "Do you like what you see?" Leo nodded emphatically without hesitation. "You do." He looked her up and down again. "But you seem a little thinner." At the mention of this, Claire's eyes lit up. "I'm going to weigh myself." She padded over to the scale in the living room, slipped off her slippers, set her phone aside, and carefully stepped on. Her face broke into a joyous grin. "I really did lose weight." Leo came over and glanced at the number. 48. 7 kilograms. For Claire's height, that was significantly underweight. It was partly due to her recent workout routine, but mostly because of her injury and hospital stay. While Claire was happy with the change, Leo frowned. "Being too thin isn't good for you. Your health is more important. You just recovered from your injury. You need to eat well for a while." Claire glanced over at him. "You like them bigger?" He waved a hand, his expression righteous. "As long as it's you, I like you at any weight. But your health is what matters most, though a little more wouldn't hurt. A little more to hold on to." Of course, Leo, now a self-proclaimed high-EQ boyfriend, didn't say that last part out loud. He maintained the facade of a concerned partner. Claire's eyes curved into crescent moons. Someone's getting sweeter with his words lately. She stepped closer and gave him a rewarding kiss on the lips. Then she pulled back, a mischievous glint in her eye. "But being sweet is good. Eating sweet things can make you gain weight, too." Leo smacked his lips, nodding seriously. Perfectly reasonable. First, kissing was for weight loss. Now it's for weight gain. The principles of dieting, it seemed, were flexible, with all interpretations subject to the sole discretion of the power couple. At noon, Leo went into the kitchen to cook. Having achieved great success with her fried egg and longevity noodles that morning, Chef Sue was eager to join him and try her hand at a few more dishes. Her offer was swiftly vetoed. After all, he wanted to live to see his next birthday. Cooking was off the table for Ms. Bertha Sue unless Mr. Chien or Mrs. Phone was present to run interference. Of course, what he said was, "You worked so hard this morning. I'll handle lunch. If you want to cook later, you can make something for reasonable when he gets back." Claire thought about it and nodded. "Okay." Just then, the parrot in question returned home, brandishing the special edition DVD Mr. Chien had bought him. As he flew in the door, he overheard their conversation. His face fell in horror, and he immediately spun around and flew back out after Mr. Chien, squawking, "Big brother, wait. Don't go. I'll come to your place. I'll come to your place." In the end, Leo cooked a few simple dishes. The couple sat at the dining table and had a peaceful lunch together. Afterward, they cleaned up in the kitchen together. So many of life's daily chores, even the boring ones, became fulfilling and happy when done as a couple. They had a system at the sink. Leo washed the bulk of the dishes, so Claire finished her task first. She turned and watched him, his head bowed in concentration as he scrubbed. She couldn't help but remember the stormy night just a few days ago, seeing that same figure gripping the steering wheel of the Maybach, leading them out of danger. Without thinking, Claire stepped closer and wrapped her arms around his waist from behind, pressing her body against his. "Leo, I'll never stop you from being a hero." In the small kitchen, her voice was soft but firm. "But next time, if you have to take a risk, don't you dare leave me behind." Leo's hands paused in the soapy water. A gentle look came into his eyes. He nodded. "Okay." Satisfied, Claire pressed her cheek against his back and hugged him tighter. "And one more thing." "Yeah, what is it?" "If you ever mention Sarah Lynn again while I'm asleep to wake me up, you're dead." Oh, right. It won't happen again, I promise." How should one spend a birthday? For Leo, it wasn't about extravagant demands. Just being with the person he loved was more than enough. In the afternoon, they settled onto the living room couch and put on a romantic movie. The April sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows. The couple snuggled together, natural and close. Whenever the movie showed the main characters in an intimate moment, She would look up at him and lean in for a kiss. Leo would kiss her back, again and again. The kisses were gentle and tender, slow and lingering. It was hard to tell who was giving whom the public display of affection, the characters on the screen or the couple on the couch. Mr. Chien, who had been about to drop reasonable off, peeked through the slightly ajar door, saw the scene, and sighed with admiration. A perfect match. He turned and walked away, shaking his head with a smile, taking the parrot with him. It wouldn't do to interrupt such a private moment. After the movie, it was just past 3. They were both lazily draped over the couch, not wanting to move. Leo pulled out his phone and opened Garden Grab to check on the game's latest updates and harvest his crops. Claire, at the other end of the couch, picked up a novel and began to read. They were each doing their own thing, not bothering the other, yet both were basking in the quiet intimacy of being together. The afternoon atmosphere in the LNS house was serene. When Leo put his phone down, he turned and realized his girlfriend had fallen asleep, the book resting on her chest. She was leaning against the armrest, one hand propping up her cheek. Her eyes were closed, her long lashes fluttering with each even breath. Her long, slender legs, clad in black over-the-knee socks, were crossed casually, propped up in his lap. Leo looked down. He sucked in a sharp breath. Whoa, jailbait. The afternoon sun was gentle, the breeze warm. On the living room couch, the dozing girl's eyelids were heavy, her waterfall of black hair spilling softly over her shoulders. The sunlight traced a golden edge along her exquisite face. She was as beautiful as a painting. Her long legs rested naturally, intimately, across his lap. Black over-the-knee socks hugged her feet and calves, outlining their perfect, rounded curves. Leo swallowed hard. The little angel of reason on his shoulder solemnly warned him, Leo, you are a gentleman. You cannot take advantage of this situation. But the little devil on his other shoulder was already jumping up and down, brandishing a tiny pitchfork. Gentleman, my ass. Dude, it's your birthday. If you let this opportunity pass, what kind of man are you? Leo decided the little devil had a point. The birthday boy gets a pass. Forget Bertha Sue, even the web novel censors would have to bow, hand him a gift, and quietly get lost today. His mind made up, Leo looked at the slender legs resting on his knees and reached out his hand of sin. He gently wrapped his fingers around her sock-clad foot. The sensation was soft. He was instantly addicted. He gave another squeeze. He was contemplating whether he should take the sock off, but then thought that leaving it on was also quite nice. Just then, a helpful, well-intentioned voice drifted over from the side. Why not take one off and leave one on? Leo's eyes widened in realization, and he smacked his forehead. Hey, yeah, that's perfectly reasonable. But a second later, he snapped back to reality. His hand froze. He slowly lifted his head and followed the sound of the voice. He was met by Claire's teasing, smiling eyes. She had been awake the whole time. Someone's hands are getting a little naughty. Caught red-handed. As a seasoned offender, Leo remained perfectly calm. You're awake? I was just worried your ankle sprain hadn't healed yet. I was helping you massage it. Claire glanced down at her left foot, currently cradled in his hands. Is that so? But I sprained my right foot. When your girlfriend is too smart, little tricks don't work. Sensing danger, Leo quickly tried to make his escape. Reasonable isn't back yet. I should go look for him at Mr. Chien's place. Before he could get up, a cool female voice stopped him. Not so fast. A long, slender leg shot out and pressed him back down onto the couch. Her delicate foot, wrapped in a black over-the-knee sock, rested firmly on his chest. Claire, still lounging against the armrest with her cheek in her hand, smiled at him. No need to rush. First, tell me honestly, what were you just trying to do? Confess, and you'll be treated with leniency. Resist, and you'll face the consequences. As she spoke, her foot began to trace light patterns on his chest, the tip of her toe playfully moving up and down. Leo was completely bewildered by this turn of events. He stared at her foot for a long moment before asking, what does leniency entail? Claire raised an eyebrow. I'll let you go. Without a moment's hesitation, he replied, then I choose the consequences. He puffed out his chest with the defiant air of a martyr. Bring it on. Man, if this was what they did during ancient interrogations, I'd sign up to be a criminal. Claire saw right through him, a mix of exasperation and amusement on her face. But she didn't call him out. She played along, the curve of her lips becoming more seductive. My, you got some spirit, hero, and I just love taming spirited men. The provocative words were something her cold, aloof self from her past life could never have imagined saying. Paired with her current suggestive posture, it was enough to make anyone blush. But the girl suppressed her shyness, her leg bravely tracing a path up his chest. The tip of her foot grazed his stomach, his chest, his neck, until it gently tilted his chin up. The seductive allure of that moment was breathtaking. Even Leo was stunned into a daze. Following the line of her foot, he looked up at her and saw her gently biting her lower lip, a crimson blush spreading across her cheeks. The atmosphere grew thick with a dizzying, intimate tension. Both of their hearts began to pound. Just then, the sound of their friends' voices echoed from the front yard. "We're here." "Oh, the door's open." "Leo." "Bertha." "We're here." The sound of footsteps grew closer. On the couch, Leo and Claire's expressions changed instantly. Claire frantically pulled her leg back and tried to sit up, but in her haste, she lost her balance and nearly fell off the sofa. Leo reacted instantly, reaching out to catch her. Careful, but her momentum pulled him off balance as well, and he tumbled forward, landing directly on top of her. At that exact moment, the gang from room 205 and 520 pushed open the door, full of excitement. "Claire!" "Leo." The next second, they saw the couple on the floor in front of the couch, tangled in a very intimate, suggestive position. Everyone froze. Then, in unison, they sucked in a sharp breath. "You know what? Why don't you two finish up? We'll come back later." With the arrival of their friends, the single slaughterhouse was instantly filled with life. Everyone greeted the couple warmly, wishing Leo a happy birthday. They had all brought bags of groceries, drinks, and beer. It was around 3:30 p.m., the perfect time to start prepping for dinner. The girls from room 205 rolled up their sleeves, eager to help. "It's Leo's birthday today. You two just relax. We'll show off our skills." The guys from room 520 immediately intervened in a panic. "Ladies, please, no. You rest, just relax. Let the men handle the cooking." With that, Marco, Leon, and Dylan herded Leo into the kitchen. They might not be chefs, but they could at least help with washing vegetables and chopping meat. Anything was better than letting the ladies of 205 blow up the kitchen. It wasn't just their dorm mates who came to celebrate. Around 4 p.m., Lily Lou arrived, having been invited by Leo and Claire. Her arrival was met with enthusiastic welcomes. After the terrifying night on Spirit Springs Mountain, they all shared the bond of having faced death together, which had brought them closer. Lily quickly fell into easy conversation with the girls from 205, the atmosphere warm and friendly. Not long after, Mr. Chien returned with reasonable. He had only meant to drop the parrot off, but he was immediately invited to stay for the party. He was happy to oblige. "All right, I'll just pop next door and grab some red wine." He left as quickly as he came. Lily watched him go, a curious expression on her face. "That Mr. Chien, he looks kind of familiar." It seemed she had seen him at the barbershop, the diner, the motel, and the flower shop near campus. The girls from room 205 suppressed their smiles and explained, "You probably don't know about the Gilded Phoenix group." At 5:30 p.m., as the sun began to set, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, the delicious aroma of cooking filled the LNS house. One by one, steaming dishes were brought to the dining table. Everyone took their seats and opened the red wine. Before eating, they all raised their glasses to Leo and said in unison, "Happy birthday." Leo smiled and clinked his glass against theirs, saving the last for Claire. Claire held up her glass, looked at him, and smiled softly. "This one is to new life." Cheers and applause erupted. Most of them thought she was referring to their narrow escape from Spirit Springs Mountain. Only Claire knew the truth. This toast was because this life was finally different from the last. 16 years from now, in her past life, on this very day, the warm, handsome man before her had lost his life for her in a stormy night. 16 years ago in this life, she was finally able to be by his side. Leo, too, felt a flicker of recognition at her words. He felt as if she had unknowingly touched upon a sentiment only he could understand. The memory of that rainy night from his past life seemed infinitely distant now, almost faded. In what felt like a blink of an eye, a new birthday had arrived in this new life. He was surrounded by friends and family. Happiness enveloped him. His love was by his side. A genuine smile spread across his face. He looked at Claire and raised his glass to hers again. "Yeah, to new life." After the toast, everyone dug in, eating with gusto. After a few bites to line their stomachs, they started challenging each other to drinks, and the atmosphere grew even more lively. Throughout the evening, Leo's phone buzzed with calls and texts from friends and family wishing him well. Anna's school had scheduled an off-campus internship, so she couldn't make it, much to her dismay. Over the phone, Annie Cakes railed against her school before giving her brother and sister-in-law strict instructions. "Remember to save me a piece of cake. I'll come get it next week." Leo rolled his eyes. It'll be moldy by then. Claire was more generous. Don't worry, when Annie Cakes comes, I'll bake her a fresh one. This sent her into a panic. Oh, the signal's bad, I have to go. Happy birthday, bro. Bye, sis. Lily Lou, confused, whispered to Quinn and Molly. Is Claire a bad baker or something? Jade silently handed her one of Chef Sue's handmade cookies. Try this, and you'll understand. After one small bite, Lily's expression changed dramatically. Her eyes widened in quiet horror as she discreetly spat the cookie into a napkin. She made a mental note to never, ever let the bride-to-be cook for her. Next, Kevin and Tessa called. The couple in Portland seemed to be out to dinner themselves. Kevin's voice boomed through the phone. Happy birthday, Leo. Your brother can't be there, but I'll down one for you from here. Honey, bring me the beer. They heard the sound of furious chugging, followed by a loud thud as a head hit a table. Finally, Tessa took the phone, her voice calm and collected. Your brother is a little dead. It's fine. Happy birthday, Leo. Have fun. The last call was from his parents in Northwood. Everyone at the table leaned in to say hello, surprising and delighting his parents on the other end. Our little Leo has so many friends celebrating with him. His mother's birthday wish was simple and heartfelt. Your father and I don't need you to be rich or famous, son. We just want you to be happy and safe every day. She quickly added, and give us some grandchildren soon. A granddaughter would be fine too. How about twins? His father chimed in seriously. Your mother is right. The table erupted in teasing cheers. Leo's face turned bright red. He glanced at Claire, who was pretending to look away, but the blush creeping up her neck and ears gave her away. Finally, it was time for cake and presents. The cake was from the Gilded Phoenix Bakery, which Mr. Chien had conveniently picked up when he went to get the wine. They put a birthday hat on Leo, lit the candles, sang, and urged him to make a wish. Leo closed his eyes with a smile. 1,000 thoughts seemed to pass through his mind. Finally, he made his wish silently. When he opened his eyes, everyone was curious. What did you wish for? Leo just shook his head with a grin and joked, it's not for kids. Somehow, everyone seemed to understand immediately, their mischievous gazes shifting to Claire. She couldn't help but laugh. Why are you all looking at me? What's going on in those dirty minds of yours? The guys from room 520 had pooled their money for a new keyboard and mouse set, plus a giant gift basket of date cakes from Leon. The girls from 205 gave them a pair of matching hats and a custom puzzle featuring a photo of them kissing on the beach. Lily Lou gave him a pair of running shoes. Mr. Chien's gift was simpler, a membership card. He proudly declared that the card granted him VIP status at all his Gilded Phoenix establishments, complete with exclusive couples packages. The final gift was from Claire. When Mr. Chien helped haul a box as tall as a person into the living room, everyone was stunned. Whoa, what is that? Bertha, did you get him a fridge? Leo was also baffled. He had no idea when she had managed to hide such a huge box in the house. When he opened it, he was stunned again. Inside were more than a dozen smaller gift boxes. Marco's sharp eyes counted them quickly. 18. Everyone else caught on. 18 presents? Claire looked at Leo, a gentle smile on her face. For all the birthdays I missed, I'm making them up. To 1-year-old little Leo, who came into this world deserving 1,000 warm hugs. Inside was a soft hand-knitted scarf. To 5-year-old little Leo, who was always active and envious of other kids' toy cars. No need to be envious anymore. Someone will get them all for you. Inside was a complete set of 16 pristine model cars. To 10-year-old little Leo, who loved music in 4th grade. From now on, you'll have someone to listen with you. Inside was a collector's edition, signed debut album from Jay Cho. Leo read each card and opened each gift. 12 years old. 13. 14. The wishes on the cards were tender and sincere. Each gift was thoughtful and perfect, things he had once longed for but never received. To 15-year-old you, who liked to write in a diary when you were sad. From now on, we'll write in one together, a memory for the two of us to cherish even when we're 100. Inside was a scrapbook, already filled with photos of them from the past year, with notes in her neat, beautiful handwriting. 16, 17, until finally 18. He opened the small, exquisite box. Inside lay a pair of couple's rings. To 18-year-old you, who will hold the hand of a beautiful desk mate. For the rest of your life, everything convenient will be perfectly reasonable. Leo looked up at Claire. She was smiling radiantly. Happy birthday. He smiled back. Yeah, happy birthday. He leaned in and kissed her soft lips. The room erupted in cheers. Oh, Marco raised his glass with a flourish. Come on, a toast to the happy couple. That night, The lights in the LNS house burned bright. The guests were merry and full of wine. Late into the night, they tactfully took their leave. Leo and Claire walked them out to the front yard. Standing at the gate, they watched their friends' figures disappear into the distance. Slightly drunk, Leo turned to his girlfriend and joked, "By the way, after this birthday, I'm 19. You're one gift short." Claire raised an eyebrow. "Who said I was short? I prepared 19 gifts." Leo paused, surprised. "What's the last one?" The girl moved closer, standing on her toes to whisper in his ear, her voice an intimate caress. "Me?" The next second, she wrapped her arms around his neck, pulled him down, and kissed him with sudden, fierce passion. They stumbled through the front door, still locked in a fiery embrace. Leo's hands were wrapped around her slender waist. Claire's arms were tight around his neck, her soft, fragrant body pressed so close it felt like she was trying to merge with him. From the entryway to the couch, and then to the stairs, he swept her up into his arms. She let out a small gasp before surrendering once more to the passionate haze. They ascended the stairs, step by step. When they reached the master bedroom, Claire seemed to remember something and gently pushed him away. You wait a second." First with a playful scolding, then with a soft plea, she finally convinced him to let her go. She hurried into the adjoining dressing room. Leo sat on the edge of the bed, feeling antsy, about to get up, when he heard the elegant click of high heels. Claire emerged from the dressing room, wearing a long, silk robe. She stood before him and gave a small, proud nod. As the robe fell away, revealing the breathtaking vision beneath, Leo's mind went completely blank. The early spring night was cool, but inside the bedroom of the LNS house, the temperature was suddenly, searingly hot. That night, the moonlight was soft, the evening breeze restless. The shadows of the trees danced, and a hidden fragrance filled the air. Downstairs in the living room, faint sounds could be heard from the floor above, enough to make one's heart race. A chubby parrot stared in bewilderment as the DVD of female parrots he had just acquired was somehow replaced with a lecture on Shakespearean sonnets. "So are you to my thoughts as food to life? Shall I compare thee to a summer's day?" That night, in the master bedroom upstairs, the girl's eyes were hazy, like water. She bit her lower lip until her slender waist arched like a bowstring. Like a drowning person breaking the surface for air, she gasped for breath, her arms locked tightly around Leo's neck. She fought to control her trembling voice, but her words were full of contentment and certainty. "Leo, now, you have all of me. A night of dragons and fish dancing." As the morning sun once again streamed into the LNS house, Leo sat up in bed, rubbing the sleep from his eyes. He glanced beside him at his girlfriend, who was still sound asleep, clutching the covers. The memory of last night's wild passion made him feel a little dazed, as if it had all been a dream. But looking at the girl beside him, a smile crept onto his face. It wasn't a dream. It was all real. He leaned down and gently kissed her forehead. As he pulled away, he realized she had opened her eyes and was watching him. Leo paused, then smiled back. "You're awake?" Claire mumbled and pulling the covers up higher until only the top half of her face was showing. She looked at Leo, then, out of nowhere, asked, "Who are you? Why are you in my bed?" Leo. He was so completely blindsided that he nearly recoiled off the bed. Holy shit, what is happening? Seeing her boyfriend nearly tumble to the floor in shock, Claire couldn't hold back a mischievous grin. "Idiot. I'm just kidding." He let out a sigh of relief, wiping imaginary sweat from his brow. "Thank God. Don't joke like that. Your boyfriend's heart isn't what it used to be." Claire reached out a slender, pale arm and hooked it around his neck, pulling him down towards her. A seductive curve played on her lips. "Not what it used to be. You seem to have plenty of energy last night." Caught off guard, Leo found himself half-sprawled on top of her. He could feel the soft, supple curves of her body beneath him and felt his mouth go dry. "It's not just last night. I'm feeling pretty energetic right now, too." Claire paused. A second later, she seemed to notice something, and a blush crept up her cheeks. "You pervert. It's first thing in the morning." Leo feigned innocence. "Hey, you started it. Last night, you were the one who..." Before he could finish, she scrambled to cover his mouth with her hand. "What about me? Don't talk nonsense." She tried to act casual, her voice a little strained. "I just saw it was your birthday, so I gave you a present." Is it so unreasonable for a girlfriend to give her boyfriend a birthday present? Leo nodded with righteous conviction. Perfectly reasonable. He paused, then gave her a wicked grin. But it could be even more reasonable. With that, he pulled the covers over both of them. Amid Claire's surprised yelp, the two of them tumbled together under the sheets. In the bright morning sunlight, The white comforter became a rolling wave. Another gasp came from beneath it. Ouch! Followed by a frantic voice. What? What's wrong? I haven't even started yet. Then, the girl's voice, a mix of exasperation and amusement. Idiot! You're pulling my hair. It was Wednesday, and they both had morning classes. But due to certain unavoidable circumstances, they were both 20 minutes late. When questioned by her concerned roommates from 205, Claire gave a calm and composed explanation. I overslept. The single sentence left Molly, Jade, and Quinn completely baffled. Overslept? That was something that had never happened to their resident campus queen before. They eyed her suspiciously. Claire, however, was the picture of composure. I'm thirsty. I'm going to the campus store. She turned and strolled away, leaving her 3 friends to exchange confused glances. As they watched her leave, Molly suddenly tilted her head. Is it just me, or is Claire walking a little weird? Leo's explanation to his roommates was far more reasonable. We were just debriefing last night's birthday party. We lost track of time. This was an explanation Marco, Leon, and Dylan could easily accept. But a moment later, they looked at him quizzically. Debriefing is fine, but Leo, why is your nose bleeding again? Forcing the steamy images from that morning out of his mind, Leo wiped his nose, his voice nonchalant. It's nothing. Spring is here. I'm just running a little hot. After the last class of the day, the couple met at the dining hall. As they sat at a corner table, Leo would take a bite of his noodles, then sneak a glance at Claire. Another bite, another glance. It got to the point where Claire couldn't take it anymore and lightly smacked the back of his hand. Just eat your food. Why do you keep staring at me? Am I that appetizing? But once her hand was out, she couldn't get it back. As a matter of fact, you are, Leo said, completely serious, as he turned his hand over and captured hers. Holding hands was nothing new for them, but after the events of the past day, the simple touch made a shiver run through Claire. Leo felt her reaction and was as delighted as an explorer discovering a new continent. He got an idea. He began to gently trace patterns on her palm with his finger. Claire's body tensed again, her cheeks flushing. She quickly clamped down on his fingers to stop him, shooting him a glare and hissing, "Stop fooling around. Eat your food." Leo looked at his trapped fingers. "I can't really eat if you don't let go." Claire gritted her teeth. "This is your fault for fidgeting." Leo paused, then looked at her. "This conversation we're having, does it feel a little like we're going for a drive?" Claire blinked. She looked down at her hand, gripping his fingers, then thought about what they had just said. Realization dawned, and she quickly let go, mortified. "Who's going for a drive? You little pervert, you're impossible." Seeing her flustered, blushing face, Leo found her even more adorable. Seizing the rare opportunity to have the upper hand, he pressed his advantage. He reached out, gently tilting her chin up, his tone playful. "Hey, gorgeous. Call me husband, and let's hear how it sounds." Claire stared at him for a second, watching his triumphant expression, and her eyes narrowed dangerously. "Husband, is it?" He was still grinning. "Yeah, just say it once and I'll eat my food." Before he could finish, without any obvious movement, Claire shifted her leg under the table, placing it in a rather strategic location. Leo's face changed instantly. He stared at her wide-eyed. Claire's expression was the picture of innocence. "Are you going to eat your food nicely?" Leo nodded vigorously. "Yes, yes. And do you still want me to call you husband?" "No, no. Call me whatever you want. Then you call me wife." "Huh." Under the table, her foot shifted with a hint of menace. "Are you going to or not?" Leo sucked in a sharp breath. "Yes, yes, yes. Wife, wife, wife." A few moments later, peace was restored. Leo was diligently focused on his noodles. Claire looked at her little boyfriend, a corner of her mouth twitching, then breaking into a smile. "You idiot. You love to play, but you're so bad at it." Leo's teeth itched. "Just you wait, Bertha Sue. Tonight, I will make you call me husband willingly." In the end, the revenge plan never came to fruition. It was only Wednesday. Leo and Claire had agreed long ago that they would only go back to the LNS house on weekends. During the week, they would stay in their respective dorms to be closer to classes and to spend time with their roommates. This arrangement had been fine before, but after last night, things had changed. At the slightest lapse in concentration, their minds would drift back to the master bedroom of the LNS house. One of them would blush furiously, the other would feel a telltale warmth in his nose. Their roommates were baffled. "Claire, are you okay? Your face has been red all day." Claire pressed a cold, damp towel to her cheeks. "Try to calm down." "I'm fine. It's just a little hot in here." Meanwhile, in room 520, concern was growing. "Leo, this isn't normal. Is that internal injury from your training really that bad? Your nose is bleeding again." Leo, with 2 wads of tissue sticking out of his nostrils, spoke in a muffled voice. It's fine. This is what happens when you reach the advanced stages of the technique. That evening, the couple went for a walk around campus. As the time came to part ways, Leo walked Claire to the entrance of her dorm. They looked at each other. Well, I'm heading in, she said. Yeah, you should. Staying in the dorm is good, too. We can't just go back to the LNS house every day. Reasonable. Everything in moderation. We're not animals, after all. Of course not. Okay, I'm really going now. Bye. On the surface, they were both trying to act nonchalant. Their parting kiss was perfectly normal. It was only after they turned away that Leo licked his lips, feeling a familiar dryness in his throat, a wildfire starting in his chest. He gave himself a light slap on the cheek. Get a grip. A real man doesn't spend all day thinking about that. Leo, you need to focus. Your destiny is among the stars. Claire, too, felt a weakness in her knees. She took a few deep breaths to calm herself, scolding her own reflection. Claire Sterling, get it together. A girl shouldn't be so shameless. Last night was. Okay, it was a few times, but a former cold-hearted CEO can't be ruled by these ridiculous desires. The result was that back in their respective beds that night, with the lights out, both of them stared at the ceiling, wide awake. Deep breath after deep breath. One chanted, "My mind is like ice. The heavens can fall, and I will not be moved." The other thought, "Form is emptiness. Emptiness is form." It didn't work. They couldn't sleep. They pulled out their phones and looked at the calendar. When is it Friday? Why are there still 2 more days until Friday? 2 days is 48 hours, 2,880 minutes. And every second felt like a year. In the darkness, the young couple gritted their teeth. Who invented time? To hell with time. Where's Mr. Joe? Get Mr. Joe to deal with it. The next day, Thursday, at lunch, the 2 dorms gathered in the dining hall. The couple, however, had returned to a state of breezy nonchalance. They politely served each other food. Try this. Oh, you should try this too. Thank you. You're welcome. They were the very picture of courteous respect. Their friends, however, were more confused than ever. What's going on with you two? Leo and Claire looked up, their expressions perfectly innocent. Nothing's wrong. Their friends were skeptical. Nothing? Then why do you both have such dark circles under your eyes? You look like you didn't sleep at all. The couple simultaneously reached up to touch the heavy bags under their eyes, paused, then spoke in unison. Oh, the dorm bed was too hard. I couldn't get comfortable. What a coincidence. Me too. After lunch, they parted ways with their bewildered roommates. Leo and Claire strolled through campus side by side. As if a thought had just occurred to him, Leo mentioned casually, "By the way, I don't have any classes this afternoon." Claire paused, then replied, just as casually, "What a coincidence. Neither do I." Leo adopted a thoughtful expression. "If neither of us has class, then it seems a waste to just do nothing all afternoon." Claire nodded in agreement. True, it would be a shame to waste the time. They both fell silent, stealing a glance at each other before quickly looking away. Leo cleared his throat, trying to sound righteous. "I'm not suggesting anything. We agreed to go back to the LNS house on the weekend, so we'll go back on the weekend." Claire nodded, forcing a calm expression. "Of course. It's only 1 more day, anyway. I'm not in any rush to go back today." The conversation stalled. Both were pretending not to care, but neither was willing to let it go. Leo licked his dry lips. But on the other hand, Claire's head snapped toward him, a flicker of hope in her eyes. His mind raced, and a brilliant idea struck him. Right. Reasonable is home all by himself today. I bet Mr. Chien hasn't fed him yet. Claire's eyes lit up. That won't do. He'll be starving. Leo's spirit soared. Then we have to go back and feed him. It's not that we want to go back. It's for reasonable. Claire nodded emphatically without a second thought. Exactly. Reasonable. The next second, their eyes met again. With perfect, unspoken understanding, they linked hands and broke into a sprint toward the campus gate. They hailed a cab and sped back to the LNS house. The couple burst through the front gate, fumbled with the key, and unlocked the door. The moment the lock clicked, they were already stumbling inside, locked in a passionate kiss. In the living room, the chubby parrot, who had been starving all day, saw his owners and flew towards them in delight. Emperor, Empress, Emperor, Empress, hungry, hungry. Before he could finish, the girl swatted him out the front door with a casual backhand. The boy kicked the door shut with his heel. They continued their ascent upstairs, still kissing, leaving a certain chubby parrot to tumble dizzily onto the front lawn, utterly bewildered. The couple practically tumbled up the stairs and into the bedroom, still locked in a fierce kiss. Along the way, shoes, socks, and jackets were discarded, littering the floor. As they entered the room, Leo had a brief moment of clarity. Did something just fly past us when we came in? The next second, Claire stood on her toes, wrapped her arms around his neck, and sealed his lips with hers. Not important. Why are you thinking about other things right now? He nodded, his thoughts hazy. Reasonable. Then, without a second thought for the actual reasonable's fate, he dove back into the passionate embrace. They fell onto the large bed together. Their faces were inches apart. They looked at each other and couldn't help but smile. Well, look at that. We somehow ended up back here. Yeah, what a coincidence. Since we're here, we shouldn't waste it. Wasting time is bad. We have to cherish every second. The next moment, he put his words into action, leaning down to capture her lips once more. At the same time, his right hand deftly explored its way behind her back. Click. It was the sound of something coming unclasped. It was followed by the girl's surprised gasp. Leo, how are you so good at that? Followed by Leo's nonchalant reply. It's nothing. I practiced on your other clothes. Claire didn't know whether to laugh or be angry. You little pervert. MMPH. MMPH. Her lips were sealed by his once again, and she lost all ability to speak, surrendering to the moment. The bedroom door was half closed. The muffled thud of the vibrating friendship bed could be heard, along with the boy's heavy breathing and the girl's slightly hoarse voice. Leo. This isn't good. We need to have some self-control. Okay, starting tomorrow. 30 minutes later, the girl's breathing was ragged. Phew, you little pervert, I'm serious. We can't be this indulgent just because we're young. From now on, we can't be thinking about coming home every day. I know. Today was just a coincidence, an accident. Right. Why did we come back today anyway? Huh, I forgot. Not important. You wait. Wait a second. A startled cry from the girl quickly melted into a low, passionate moan. Finally, when they were both spent, they lay sprawled on the bed, soaked in sweat. Claire's body felt weak and limp. She managed to lift a hand to brush a damp strand of hair behind her ear, her breathing still a little ragged. Leo, no more fooling around. Can we just rest now? Leo turned to look at her, seeing her flushed face, beaded with sweat, her chest still rising and falling rapidly, and hearing her rare plea for mercy, his sense of masculine pride soared. He leaned over, gently tipping her chin up with his finger, a playful smirk on his face. Given up? Call me husband, and I'll let you go. Claire blinked. Given up? How to ignite the competitive spirit of a cold, domineering female CEO in one easy step. The girl's eyes narrowed. Then she flipped over and sat up, looking down at him from above. A dangerous glint, like a flickering flame, appeared in her eyes. Who's given up? Let's go again. Meeting her gaze, Leo felt a sudden jolt. He had a very bad feeling, as if he had just awakened a dangerous, sleeping lioness. You know what? He tried to change the subject, his expression calm. Let's not. I think it's important for young people to practice moderation. The next second, moderation? With a cold laugh, Claire leaned forward, pinning his hands to the bed on either side of his head. Her face was inches from his, a dangerous, seductive smile on her lips. Little boy, it's a bit late to be talking about moderation now. As it turns out, there's no such thing as overplowed land, only an exhausted ox. As the sun set and the evening sky filled with color, Claire rose from the bed in the master bedroom, looking refreshed and invigorated. She glanced back at the bed. A corner of her mouth lifted. She tossed out a casual, dismissive comment. Is that all you've got? With that, she picked up a robe from the floor, draped it over her shoulders, and with her long, pale legs bare, padded cheerfully toward the bathroom. On the bed, Leo, completely drained of energy, was filled with indignant rage. Bertha Sue, don't you leave. Get back here, and we'll go another round. Claire stopped. She turned her head. Leo's pupils quaked. He swallowed hard, trying to remain calm. In nothing. I was just saying, farewell, my lady. This humble servant will not see you out. Claire snorted, wrinkled her nose at her defeated opponent, and then, humming a cheerful little tune, continued to the bathroom, leaving Leo on the bed, gritting his teeth in frustration, making a solemn vow. That's it. I'm starting a workout routine with Leon tomorrow. Having made his decision, he flopped back onto the bed in a starfish position, feeling completely empty, and stared blankly at the ceiling. Life. Suddenly it feels so meaningless. But Claire's footsteps stopped at the bathroom door. She seemed to remember something. She turned back and called out casually to her boyfriend on the bed. I'm going to take a shower. Want to join? The single sentence made him freeze. A second later, he shot up from the bed, full of life. Yes, yes, yes. We can save on the water bill. Perfectly reasonable. What meaningless? Life was full of meaning. A short while later, the sound of running water filled the bathroom, soon joined by other, more blush-inducing noises. Fortunately, the door was tightly closed, concealing the steamy scene within and keeping any dangerous sensors at bay. A shower for one person takes 10 minutes. A shower for two took over half an hour. Finally satisfied, the couple emerged from the bathroom. The sky outside had already darkened. It was dinner time. Leo looked at Claire and smiled. You must be hungry. I'll go cook. Claire nodded happily. Okay. They went downstairs together. Leo went to the kitchen to get started, while Claire gathered 2 bags of trash from the living room to take out. She had just opened the front door when she saw a chubby parrot lying on the ground in the front yard, looking half dead. Claire was surprised. Reasonable? What are you doing out here? Reasonable. For some reason, he suddenly felt the urge to use some very bad words. Good fortune puts a spring in your step. After spending Thursday night at the LNS house, Leo felt positively cheerful walking into his Friday morning class. He was humming some nameless tune as he made his way to the back of the room, and he'd even stopped to grab breakfast for his roommates. Marco, Leon, and Dylan were still half asleep, yawning as they shuffled into class. When Leo handed them the breakfast bags, their eyes went wide with a mixture of gratitude and shock. Holy shit, Leo, you actually went to the dining hall? Is the dining hall on a Friday morning even survivable for a mere mortal? The lines must have been insane. Leo just waved it off with a grin. It was nothing. I got there right when they opened, so there was barely a line. The main reason, of course, was that he was in a fantastic mood. When you're that happy and satisfied, you feel compelled to spread the joy and do a good deed for society. His roommates were even more stunned. You went right when they opened? Damn, what time was that? Are you trying to kill yourself getting up that early? Leo's smile never faded. It's fine. I just had some business to take care of this morning, so I got up a little earlier than usual. The 3 other members of room 520 glanced at each other, question marks practically floating over their heads. Early in the morning. What kind of business could he possibly have? The same question marks were appearing over the heads of the girls in room 205. Sitting in their business class, nibbling on the breakfast Claire had brought them from the dining hall, Quinn, Molly, and Jade were equally baffled. What could possibly be more important than sleeping in? It makes no sense. Claire's expression was serene. Some things are. The early bird gets the worm, she said. Morning exercise is good for your physical and mental health. As she said the words, morning exercise, however, she paused for a fraction of a second. An image from the bedroom at the LNS house flashed through her mind. A smile involuntarily touched her lips, turning impossibly sweet. The 3 girls from room 205 stared at her, dumbfounded. These past couple of days, why did Claire seem to be blooming? The advertising track had a design class at the new campus in the afternoon. Since they had to catch the shuttle bus, the young couple couldn't have lunch together. However, having just tasted the intimacy of being lovers, their bond had grown even tighter. They want to be stuck together every second of every minute. So, after her morning classes, Claire came straight over to see Leo off. She walked him to the campus parking lot where the shuttle was waiting. Right before he boarded, she held his hand, unwilling to let go. She didn't say anything, just gazed at him with unblinking eyes, gently biting her lower lip. The hint of seductive charm was enough to make Leo's throat go dry. He nearly blurted out, maybe I should just skip class this afternoon. But his better, more academic nature narrowly won out. He forced himself to say, I'll get back as soon as class is over. You head to the LNS house when you're done, and I'll be home before 6, I promise. The truth was, he had to check on the progress of the Browser Games art team, and David Chung from Happy Nest was also getting antsy. He needed to swing by the office for a quick chat. Claire nodded obediently. Okay, she said, her eyes still fluttering innocently as she looked at him. Leo's heart nearly skipped a beat. He immediately revised his offer. 5:30. I'll tell the driver to step on it. Claire nodded again, looking just as sweet, but her eyes kept talking to him, pleading. As if by accident, the tip of her tongue darted out and she licked her lower lip, her face a mask of pure innocence. The tiny cartoon version of Leo in his head was practically boiling over with excitement. It slapped its real-world counterpart on the forehead. 5:30. What kind of monster makes a girlfriend like that wait until 5:30? If you can't handle being in charge, let me take over. The next second, Leo's voice was firm and decisive. 5 o'clock. If the driver's too slow, I'll carry the car and run back myself. That finally made her break. A giggle escaped her lips. Smiling, She stood on her toes and gave him a quick kiss. Don't rush. Safety first. I'll be waiting for you at home. I'll be waiting for you at home. Single guys could never understand the sheer power of those 6 words. For Leo, even as he sat through his afternoon classes on the new campus, his mind had already flown back to the LNS house. The moment class was dismissed, he fired off a message to his #1 employee and then stormed the art classroom, where he found Isabella Zhao and the 4 new hires from Mako Entertainment. As the boss, he listened to Isabella's diligent introductions, nodding along. When she was finished, he waved his hand grandly. All right, welcome to the team, everyone. From now on, your work will be fully managed by Team Leader Zhao. I have complete faith in her professional skills and sense of responsibility. You'll follow her lead on all project matters. Any questions, ask her. If you all work hard, the pay and bonuses will be great. That's all from me. Get back to it. I'm out of here, bye. He bolted before anyone could react. Isabella, who had been basking in the praise, was left with a dopey, delighted smile on her face. She tried to look composed, waving a hand dismissively. Even if you praise me like that, it's not like it makes me happy or anything. The 4 new employees watched their boss vanish, still slightly stunned. After a moment, one of them finally processed what had just happened and said hesitantly, Does our boss's speech basically mean he's dumping all the work on you, team leader? Isabella froze. The realization hit her. She shot out the door after him. Wait a minute. Boss. Arg. Kevin Zhao, you bastard. Having swiftly dealt with the art team's arrangements for the browser game, Leo rushed to the campus gate, hailed a cab, and sped off toward his next destination, Happy Nest headquarters. When he arrived at the office, the employees' faces lit up. Mr. Wallace is here. David Chung heard the commotion and came out of his office, his face beaming. You rascal. So you do remember to come back here. Leo, in no mood for pleasantries, held up a hand to cut him off. Let's get to business. Get the issues organized. We'll run through them quickly. He pulled David, along with Owen Wu, Penny Fong, and a few other executives, into the conference room. In just 40 minutes, they tore through all of Happiness's recent performance data and outstanding problems. With his mind fixated on getting home, Leo displayed astonishing efficiency. He delivered a torrent of information to David and the other executives, rapidly devising solutions for every challenge. He then solidified Happiness's future operational direction and strategic blueprint. After downing 3 large glasses of water, his throat a little hoarse, Leo wiped his mouth and made his final declaration. All right, that's my plan for now. You all can discuss it further. If there's nothing else, I'm taking off. The next second, he was gone. David and the others were still reeling from the sheer volume of information. Just as they were about to marvel at their chief strategy officer's incredible business acumen and vision, they realized he had already vanished. Owen Wu was bewildered. What's Mr. Wallace's hurry? Is it that urgent? David couldn't help but laugh. Who knows? He was acting like the world was on fire. You'd think he had a goddess waiting for him at home. At 4:30 in the afternoon, Leo was finally in a car heading home. Outside the window, the evening clouds were beginning to glow, painting the sky in brilliant colors. Inside, sitting in the back seat, Leo was energized. The weight of work was lifted, and the thought of the upcoming weekend, 2 whole days of just the 2 of them, made him want to hum a happy tune. Just then, his phone rang. He picked it up. The caller ID read, Big brother, no money for smokes. Leo answered. On the other end, a middle-aged man's hearty laughter boomed. Little brother, what have you been up to? There was no special reason for the call. The chairman of Sterling Holdings had simply gotten off work early, was in a good mood, and decided to call his little buddy for a chat. Leo cheerfully chatted back. Soon, the chairman on the other end picked up on the joy in his voice and asked curiously, You sound happy today, little brother. Something had happened. Leo was a little surprised by his friend's perceptiveness. This wasn't something he could just casually announce. So he answered vaguely, Yeah, you could say that. But as he spoke, he couldn't stop the smile from spreading across his face. The chairman heard it and instantly guessed the truth. You little rascal. That vague answer. Something's definitely up. Then he suddenly lowered his voice, conspiratorially. Spill it. Did you seal the deal? Leo was flustered, but since the man had already guessed, there was no point in hiding it. He answered, a little embarrassed, Yeah. There was a moment of silence on the other end. Then, the chairman of Sterling Holdings slapped his thigh and burst into laughter, overjoyed. Attaboy. I knew you had it in you, kid. Well done. The chairman of Sterling Holdings was genuinely happy for his little brother. Though they'd only met a few times, he truly admired the young man who had once bought him a pack of cigarettes. He wasn't just charismatic and upstanding. He had a rare kindness and a perspective that was far beyond his years. He could even hold a real conversation with him. A young man like that, who also seemed deeply in love with his girlfriend. Of course, as the big brother, he sincerely hoped the couple would find their happily ever after. And now they had. They'd locked it down, which meant their relationship had surely taken a huge step forward. In his great mood, the chairman started trying to pry for more juicy details, which made Leo on the other end of the line want to laugh and cry at the same time. This big brother of his was a bit of a shameless old gossip. The chairman, however, was perfectly self-righteous. What's wrong with a big brother caring about his little brother's love life? It's perfectly reasonable. Besides, you're telling me, not your girlfriend's dad. After a few more jokes, he didn't push any further. But the chairman's interest was piqued, and he grew curious about his little brother's girlfriend. I didn't get to meet her at the cafe last time. We'll have to find a time soon. My treat. You bring your girl along so your big brother can finally meet her. Leo smiled and readily agreed. Sure, when we get a chance. After hanging up, Leo sat in the back of the taxi, shaking his head with a smile as he replayed the conversation. His big brother was certainly a character. It wouldn't be a bad idea to bring Claire to meet him sometime. Just the thought of it was amusing. He'd let his big brother see for himself what a true, world-class beauty looked like. At that exact moment, in the chairman's office on the 37th floor of the Sterling Holdings building, Charles Sterling was putting down his phone. The conversation with his little brother had left him in high spirits. He tapped his fingers on the desk, contemplating a good place to treat the young couple, humming a little tune. Just then, the former Special Forces operative pushed the door open and walked in, reporting respectfully, Mr. Sterling, the car is ready. Charles stood up, pleased. Good, let's go. His steps were light. As he reached the door, he was in such a good mood that he casually asked his trusted confidant for advice. Joe, what do you think is a good place to take a young couple out to eat? Mr. Joe paused. A young couple, sir? Charles nodded cheerfully. Yes, that little brother I'm always telling you about, the one we ran into at the cafe. Him and his girlfriend. Mr. Joe's pupils contracted violently. He took a deep breath, trying his best to keep his voice steady and prevent it from trembling. Sir, why the sudden desire to treat them to a meal? Charles laughed heartily. Why else? My little brother just sealed the deal with his girlfriend. We have to celebrate, don't we? Sealed. The deal. The former Special Forces operative felt the world go dark. The sky was falling. At 5 o'clock in the evening, the taxi arrived right on time. Leo paid the fare, got out, and practically sprinted into the LNS house. He crossed the front yard and was just about to pull out his keys when Claire heard him and opened the door. Seeing his girlfriend, Leo's face was triumphant. 5 o'clock. Home, right on schedule. Claire, seeing her boyfriend, froze for a second. She was about to say something, but before she could, Leo had scooped her up into his arms and was storming into the house. No time for chit-chat. We have business to attend to. Claire, swept off her feet, was flustered and embarrassed. Wait a minute. But Leo wasn't listening. He charged ahead, girlfriend in arms. Wait for what? Time is of the essence. The next second, he was inside. He looked up and saw Marco, Quinn, Dylan, Leon, Molly, and Jade all sitting on the living room couch. With the exception of Lily Lou, who had gone home for the weekend, it seemed both dorms had once again assembled at the LNS house. They all turned their heads at the sound of the commotion and saw Leo bursting in while carrying Claire. The two groups stared at each other. The air froze. The awkwardness was palpable. Marco cleared his throat and waved. Hey, Leo. Molly's eyes were wide as she munched on the date cakes Dylan had brought. She looked like she was watching the best reality show of her life. Wow, are you two always this sweet? Leo was utterly baffled. What are you guys doing here? Claire, still being held princess style, suppressed a laugh and whispered to her boyfriend, Annie Cakes is here. She was dying to see everyone, so I invited them all over. A giant question mark appeared over Leo's head. Annie Cakes. He instinctively looked back toward the living room. And there, sitting among their friends, munching on potato chips, was his sister. She turned her head and waved at him enthusiastically. It's me. Surprise. Now, why do sisters even exist? She needs to get married off as soon as possible. Anna had been away on a school-mandated internship a few days ago, so she'd missed Leo's actual birthday. She had insisted on coming over this weekend to make up for it. She had even brought a cake from the city and a birthday present. Leo took it and unwrapped it. It was a suit, a designer brand at that. The other girls recognized the label and gasped. Wow, that brand is so expensive. A men's suit from them has to be at least a few thousand, right? The guys from room 520 looked at Anna with awe. Annie, you're loaded. Leo, you really hit the jackpot with a sister like this. Anna waved her hand magnanimously. It's nothing. I had to buy something extra to get the purse I wanted, so I just grabbed something for Leo the pig. That evening, everyone gathered for hot pot. They cut up the birthday cake and shared it. It was while they were eating that Anna first heard about what had happened on their spring outing. She was so shocked her face went pale. She immediately turned to Claire, her voice filled with concern. Claire, are you okay? After Claire smiled and assured her she was fine, Anna let out a small sigh of relief. But she was still worried. What about Reasonable? Is Reasonable okay? Confirmed Reasonable was fine. Still not satisfied. And the Maybach? Is the Maybach okay? Confirmed the Maybach was also fine. Anna finally relaxed completely, her appetite returning as she dove back into her food. Leo, sitting beside her, raised his hand. Hello. What about me? Annie Cakes glanced at him sideways and huffed. You? As long as you're breathing, it's fine. He's a Wallace, after all. They're all cut from the same cloth. Everyone had a great time eating hot pot. They didn't drink much, but spirits were high. Anna clapped her hands excitedly. There are so many of us. Let's play a game. Marco was the first to jump up. Anything but hide and seek. The memory of their last game. Opening that closet door and getting hit point blank with a public display of affection from the power couple. The trauma was still fresh. Anna gave him a puzzled look, then grinned and waved her hands. Not hide and seek. It's a new game. It's been getting pretty popular at East Bay Financial. Have you guys ever heard of Werewolf? The group looked at her blankly. Werewolf? What's that? I've only heard of Killer. Leo raised an eyebrow, a hint of surprise on his face. Werewolf. In this timeline, in 2008, it was still a relatively new concept. In his previous life, this was around the time Killer was getting popular in the country, while Werewolf, which had long been popular in the West, wouldn't truly catch on for a few more years. He was surprised that Anna's school was so ahead of the curve. But he had to admit, it was a great game for a group of friends to play together. Everyone had moved from the dining room to the living room couches. Anna was bubbling with enthusiasm. Okay, let me explain the rules. It's really easy. It's a variation of the game Killer. There are werewolves, villagers, a witch, a seer, a hunter, even an idiot. The rules weren't too complicated. After Anna's quick explanation, everyone had a general idea, but they'd still need to play a round or two to really get it. They wrote the roles on slips of paper. Excluding the moderator, there were 8 cards. 2 werewolves, 2 villagers, 1 witch, 1 seer, 1 hunter, and 1 idiot. For the first round, Quinn volunteered to be the moderator. As the other 8 drew their cards and checked their roles, a flicker of excited glee crossed Anna's face. Just as she was trying to hide her expression, Molly gasped, Wow, I'm a werewolf. The other newcomers were equally amazed, congratulating her. Awesome. Molly, you're so lucky. Anna stared at them, dumbfounded. When she finally recovered, she was heartbroken. That's not how you play. You have to keep your identity a secret. She dejectedly threw her own werewolf card onto the table. Let's start over. Round 2. They drew new cards. This time, everyone had learned their lesson. They all carefully peeked at their roll cards, making sure no one else could see. Anna looked at her card, and, once again, a hint of a smile touched her lips. Quinn, as the moderator, announced with theatrical gravity, Night falls. Everyone, close your eyes. Everyone obediently shut their eyes, with some occasional heckling. Everyone closed them. No peeking. Whoever peeks has to take a shot. Hey, I'm thirsty. Can I go get a drink first? It was chaos. Quinn slammed her hand on the table. Quiet. No talking. Leon, stop eating the date cakes. We have to take this seriously. Marco, put the drink down. And you too, the power couple. No holding hands and making moves in the dark. Leo, eyes still closed, calmly let go of Claire's hand. Sorry, my hand slipped. Claire, also with her eyes closed, sounded cool and detached. Moderator, Leo, was holding my hand. If it happens again, I suggest we kick him out of the game. Quinn nodded, satisfied. Claire's attitude is excellent, worthy of praise. Okay, what's the next step? Hold on, let me check. While the great moderator Quinn was busy reviewing the rules, Leo's mischievous hand crept back toward his girlfriend. The girl, eyes closed, sensed her boyfriend's subtle movements. A playful smirk formed on her lips. She moved her leg, deliberately stretching her foot out. Leo's hand instinctively grabbed, only to find itself clutching a delicate, white-socked foot. For a moment, he was confused. The texture felt off. Then it dawned on him. Oh, this was even better. He immediately began to knead and massage it enthusiastically. Claire had only meant to play a little prank on her boyfriend. She had underestimated the lecherous heart of Leo, Hammer, Wallace, the warden. The sheep had walked right into the tiger's den. A tingling, ticklish sensation shot up from her foot. She almost cried out, and in her embarrassment, she quickly yanked her leg back. The sudden movement nearly pulled Leo off balance. As he leaned back to steady himself, he bumped into Marco. The rest of the group, with their eyes closed, had no idea what was happening, and chaos erupted. What's going on? Who got killed? There's a lot of commotion next to me. Is there a wolf next to me? Amid the pandemonium, Anna was on the verge of tears. This is not how you play this game. Finally, Quinn, having reread the rules, slammed the table to get everyone's attention. Let's continue. Night falls, close your eyes. Werewolves, open your eyes. Werewolves, please choose a victim. Come to a consensus. Werewolves, close your eyes. Seer, open your eyes. Please choose someone to check. Seer, close your eyes. Witch, open your eyes. This person died tonight. You have 1 potion and 1 poison. Will you use either? After laboriously going through the entire night phase, Moderator Quinn cleared her throat and announced, "The sun is up. Everyone open your eyes." It was a peaceful night. No one died. A murmur went through the group. How come no one died? Can the werewolves choose not to kill anyone? Oh, right. The witch can use the potion to save someone. Hearing the discussion, Anna secretly wore a smug, triumphant expression. In this round, she was one of the werewolves. She had executed a high-level maneuver, choosing to kill herself on the first night to successfully bait out the witch's potion. Now, the stage was set for her to shine. Quinn's gaze swept across the group. Next, we'll start with number 1. Oh, that's Leo. Leo, you go first. Leo graciously accepted. Thank you, moderator. I'm new to this, so I'm not really sure how to play. Sitting diagonally across from him, Anna's mouth stretched into a wide grin. She couldn't help but interject smugly. It's okay if you guys don't know how. I do. From now on, Leo the pig, you all just listen to me. This expert will lead you to victory. Leo nodded with a sincere look on his face. Since Annie Cakes is an expert, she'd be really dangerous if she were a werewolf. Why don't we just vote out the best player first? Then it'll be a fair match among us novices. The others heard this and started murmuring. That makes sense. I'll vote for Annie then. Me too, me too. Anna, who a second ago was rubbing her hands together in anticipation, froze solid. A moment later, reality sank in, and the little bun face looked like she was about to cry. Wait, that's not how you're supposed to play this game. When a max-level expert descends upon the beginner's village. That was Leo, playing werewolf with his friends. Anna had only been playing with her classmates for a few days, and she was already strutting around like a self-proclaimed master. The real master, however, had spent years in his past life honing his logic and acting skills through werewolf in college and after work. He'd even casually entered a regional tournament once and made it all the way to the finals. Of course, it was just a trivial little hobby. While Annie Cakes was on the verge of tears, accusing everyone of breaking the rules and ganging up on an expert, she was oblivious to the fact that the tiny flicker of glee on her face when she drew her card had been noticed by one person. With the first werewolf easily eliminated, the second was a foregone conclusion. In the next round of discussion, Leo continued to offer his sincere and simple advice to the group. Like a puppeteer, he guided his marionettes, effortlessly exposing the second werewolf, Marco. The game was over in 2 quick rounds. Leo, Hammer, Wallace, the villager, led the good guys to an easy victory. The group of friends was a little dazed, completely bewildered. Is this game always this short? It feels pretty simple. Anna was grinding her teeth in frustration. Impossible. You guys just got lucky. If you hadn't randomly voted me out, we werewolves definitely would have won. The others had a moment of realization, then looked at Anna and started whispering amongst themselves. If Annie's that good, we should probably vote her out first next round, too. Annie Cakes froze. Hey. Then, horrified, she pleaded, no. Please just let me play one proper round. I'm begging you, Sob. The room was filled with boisterous chaos. Amid the noise, Claire turned to her boyfriend, leaned in close, and whispered in his ear, "Are you playing dumb?" The warm breath on his ear made him tingle. A smile played on his lips. What do you think? Claire's eyes narrowed into a seductive squint. You guess if I can guess. The next second, she opened her mouth and gently enclosed his earlobe, her teeth pressing down lightly in a silent threat. Leo instinctively sucked in a sharp breath and surrendered immediately, lowering his voice to confess, Yes. I already know how to play. Don't tell anyone. It's more fun to secretly mess with Annie Cakes this way. Claire didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She released him and whispered reprovingly, "Is that any way for a big brother to act?" Her sense of duty as a sister-in-law was kicking in. Leo's eyes sparkled. "I can teach you. We can mess with her together." Claire didn't hesitate. "Okay, so much for sisterly duty. What could be more fun than teaming up on your little sister-in-law?" Leo seized the opportunity to negotiate. "Is there a tuition fee for these lessons?" Claire rolled her eyes at him, then subtly moved her leg, sliding her white-socked foot over to him. The warden's eyes lit up. "The boss is generous." He discreetly moved her foot behind him where no one could see and began to thoroughly enjoy his reward. The young couple's coordination was becoming flawless. The next few rounds continued with random rolls. The group slowly started to get the hang of it, their excitement growing. Claire, though new to the game, was naturally sharp. With Leo's guidance, she quickly became adept. In one particular game, they both drew werewolf cards. The two wolves worked in perfect harmony, a deadly husband and wife team. On the first night, they immediately eliminated Anna. Then, after being identified by the seer, Leo boldly claimed to be the seer himself. After getting 2 more people voted out, he was cornered. In a final move, he had Claire betray him, sacrificing himself to win her the absolute trust of the good guys. In the final round, with only 3 people left, Quinn and Marco, both villagers, were arguing heatedly, each convinced the other was the last werewolf. Quinn was voted out. Jade, the moderator, announced the game was over. The werewolves had won. Marco was completely lost. He looked at himself, then at Claire, and began to question his own reality. "It's just me and Bertha. Does that mean I'm the wolf?" When the truth was finally revealed, both dorms looked at the power couple with a mixture of awe and terror. "Wow, you two are ruthless. So this is the power of the killer couple." Terrifying, but after the shock wore off, they were eager for more. "This game is so much fun. We should play this more often." Only Annie Cakes, whose average survival time for the evening was less than 2 rounds, had a completely shattered gaming experience. She was now sprawled on the couch like a deflated balloon, a salted fish who had lost all its dreams. "I'm never playing werewolf again. This game is not fun at all, Sob." Late that night, the friends from both dorms left, thoroughly satisfied. The moment they were gone, Anna, who had been lying limply on the couch, sprang back to life. "Leo the pig, I'm sleeping with my sister-in-law tonight." Leo, who was clearing the cups and plates from the table, rolled his eyes. "In your dreams, single people sleep downstairs." Anna turned to Claire to complain. "Claire, your boyfriend is being mean to me." Claire just smiled as she listened to the siblings bicker. Wisely choosing not to get involved, she simply said, "I'm going to take a shower, you two talk," and headed upstairs. Leo took the dishes to the kitchen to wash them. Anna got off the couch and followed him in her slippers, her long legs carrying her to the dining table, where she sat and watched his back as he worked. "Leo the pig, I get cold when I sleep. I need 2 blankets." Leo, still washing dishes, replied without turning, "They're in the closet. Get them yourself." "Anna, I'm hungry again. I want a midnight snack." Leo, without looking back, "There are some of your sister-in-law's homemade cookies left." Anna flinched and said meekly, "Okay, I don't think I'm hungry anymore." She finally quieted down, sitting at the table and staring at Leo's back. After a while, she spoke again. "Leo the pig." Leo was exasperated. "Now what?" Anna's voice suddenly became quieter. "That day, during the flood, when you were driving the Maybach to escape with Claire, did you—" Hearing this, Leo's hands paused in the sink. His heart softened with warmth, and his tone grew gentle. "Don't worry, I'm fine." The next second, Annie Cakes continued on her own. "I mean, did you damage the Maybach? How much is that going to cost to fix? I can find you a guy who buys kidneys if you need the cash." "Leo." He turned around, a rolling pin in hand, his face dark with murderous intent. "You're asking for it, aren't you?" Anna immediately fled, laughing as she ran. Geez, a pig really is a pig. Can't even take a joke. But when she reached the door of the guest room, she stopped. She turned back to look at Leo and called out, "Brother." Leo raised the rolling pin menacingly. "Keep talking, and not even calling me Dad will save you." But in the next moment, the girl standing in the doorway said softly, "Don't be so reckless next time. I get worried too." Leo froze. Then he smiled and nodded. "Okay." After washing the dishes and getting Anna settled in the downstairs guest room, Leo went up to the master bedroom. The sound of the shower was a gentle patter from the bathroom. Claire was still washing up. Leo sat on the bed with his laptop, opening it to get a little more work done. He'd been in such a rush to get home today. It would be best to organize his strategic plans for the battle through the Heavens browser game and Happy Nest into proper documents, so both teams could execute them with more precision. Once he entered work mode, he was completely absorbed. Time slipped away without him noticing. Finally, the water in the bathroom stopped. The door opened. Claire, wearing a thin nightgown, emerged, toweling her hair dry. Leo heard her footsteps and glanced up casually. The sight of his girlfriend in that flimsy nightgown made his eyes light up. Claire saw him on the bed with his laptop and raised an eyebrow. Working. Leo snapped the laptop shut and tossed it aside. Work's over. Let's do something more meaningful. He reached out, grabbed her arm, and with a gentle tug, pulled her onto the bed. Claire let out a small yelp and playfully slapped him. Stop it. Annie Cakes is downstairs. But Leo was already burying his face in the crook of her delicate neck, inhaling the faint, clean scent of her skin. His voice came out muffled. It's fine. She falls asleep the second her head hits the pillow. Besides, the soundproofing is pretty good. We'll just be quiet. The vibrations from his words against her chest made Claire tingle, and her body felt weak. You, stop it. Leo was now kissing her slender neck, whispering a suggestion. Hey, where's the remote for the friendship bed? Maybe we could try it tonight. Her eyes were growing hazy, but she bit her lip, trying to hold on to her principles. Don't even think about it. The remote. I hid it where you'll never find it. Just then, the friendship bed beneath them suddenly began to vibrate with a low hum. Leo and Claire, ? At the same moment, downstairs in the guest room. For once, Anna wasn't sleepy. She decided to watch some TV. Rummaging through the nightstand drawer, she was surprised to find 2 remote controls. Curious, Annie Cakes picked them up to compare. A small piece of tape on one of them caught her eye. Friendship remote. Anna was confused. What's this? She tried pressing the power button, but the TV screen didn't turn on. The only other buttons were the numbers 1 through 7. She pressed 1. Nothing. She pressed 2. Still nothing. Refusing to be defeated, Annie Cakes began mashing all 7 number buttons in succession. The next moment, her door was thrown open. Claire, her hair slightly disheveled and wearing only her nightgown, rushed in without even bothering with slippers. A blush she couldn't hide colored her cheeks as she snatched the remote from her sister-in-law's hand. She tried to sound stern as she lectured her. Kids shouldn't play with random remotes. Then, clutching the remote, she fled the room as if escaping a fire. Anna was left standing there, stunned. I just wanted to watch TV. Claire. She watched her sister-in-law's retreating back as she hurried upstairs. Puzzled, she followed her out of the room. As she reached the living room, she heard a low, rhythmic vibration coming from the master bedroom upstairs. Anna froze. Then, realization dawned. Anna. She turned stiffly to go back to her room, nearly bumping into the coat rack and the birdcage hanging on it. The chubby parrot inside, who had been sleeping soundly, woke up with a start. Squawk. It sought Annie Cakes, whose pupils were trembling violently. Reasonable. My ears have gone blind. The parrot was still groggy and confused. Before it could react, Anna had scooped up the entire birdcage and was rushing back into the guest room. Come on, back to the room. Those are not sounds for little kids to hear. The next morning, Saturday, the 3 of them, brother, sister-in-law, and little sister, sat at the dining table for breakfast. The atmosphere was quiet and strange. Claire kept her head down as she ate, her hair falling to conceal most of her face, but it couldn't hide the embarrassed flush of her cheeks. Anna was also focused intently on her food, not daring to lift her head for fear of stumbling into another awkward topic. Leo looked from his girlfriend to his sister. He cleared his throat, trying to sound calm and composed. So, last night was an accident, a coincidence. Anna's mouth twitched. She looked up and forced a laugh. Yeah. An accident, a total accident. I was just trying to watch TV. That friendship remote thing, I had no idea what it was for. I didn't hear anything at all. She had accidentally let it slip. Claire nearly choked on her food. Annie Cakes' face fell. She quickly shut her mouth and went back to shoveling food into it. The awkwardness returned. Fortunately, Reasonable couldn't stand the weird vibe any longer. It hopped over and pecked the power button on the TV remote. The screen lit up, displaying the news. Anna instinctively turned to look and let out a small cry of surprise. Hey, it's the news about the flood from that day. Her words finally drew Leo and Claire's attention. Sure enough, the news report was about the flash flood on Spirit Springs Mountain from a week ago. After a week of intense search and rescue operations, the officials had compiled the final statistics. A single storm had triggered a flood that affected 6 or 7 villages in the mountainous region, resulting in over 40 casualties. But miraculously, Pending Village and the Hope School which should have been the hardest hit areas, were reported to be completely unharmed. The old village chief, Zhao Jiafeng, and the schoolteacher, Sun Yi, had both received official commendations. That was so close. Anna looked horrified. It's a good thing you guys evacuated in time. According to the experts on the news, Pinding Village and the Hope School were supposed to be right in the path of the worst of the flood. Then she grumbled on her brother and sister-in-law's behalf. You two were heroes, too. The government should have given you an award. Leo just shook his head with a bitter smile. Other villages still suffered. What we did was too small to be called a contribution. Anna disagreed. But at least you helped evacuate Pinding Village and the kids of the Hope School. You two aren't gods. You can't be everywhere at once. It's amazing you did that much. Her simple, matter-of-fact statement made Leo open his mouth, but for a moment, no words came out. Beside him, Claire also seemed lost in thought, but she quickly recovered and forced a smile. Yeah, Annie Cakes is right. We aren't gods. We can't take care of everything. But as she said it, her voice carried a complex weight, and it didn't notice the change in their moods. Turning back to the TV, she sighed. What is with 2008? First, the big winter storm in the south. Now this flood, with so many people gone. This is supposed to be the year of the Olympics. I just hope the country can have some peace and quiet from here on out. It was just an offhand comment. But without meaning to, her words struck Leo and Claire like a clap of thunder. The shock made them both momentarily daze out. It wasn't until Anna called their names several times. Hey, what's wrong with you two? Why did you suddenly space out? That they snapped back to reality. Oh, it's nothing. Yeah, nothing. On the surface, they tried to act casual. But as they lowered their heads, their hearts felt as if they were being crushed by a giant stone. Because they both knew, following the timeline, the rest of 2008 would be anything but smooth. Anna stayed at the LNS house for the rest of the morning. Leo and Claire kept her company, playing cards, watching TV, and chatting casually. Everything seemed perfectly normal, with no hint of anything amiss. After lunch, Anna had to leave. As a junior nearing finals, she had a lot to take care of at school. Before she left, she held Claire's hand, reluctant to go. Claire, if I have time next week, I'll come visit again. Claire nodded happily. Of course, we'll play werewolf again. The single sentence made Annie Cakes snatch her hand back, as if she'd been electrocuted. You know what? I just remembered I might be busy next week, so I probably can't make it. Gotta go, bye. She turned and fled. Claire and Leo exchanged a look, a silent, knowing smile passing between them. Leo glanced at the door, then turned back to his girlfriend. I'll walk her to the street to get a cab. Be right back. Claire nodded. Okay, be safe. After seeing Anna off in a taxi, Leo quickly returned to the LNS house. When he walked in, he saw Claire sitting on the living room couch, watching the TV. Another news channel was on, still reporting on the aftermath of the Spirit Springs mountain flood. The screen showed the devastated villages, a landscape of rubble and ruin. Firefighters were clearing the debris, while villagers who had lost their families sat on the ground, their cries heart-wrenching. The sound was deeply unsettling. Claire stared at the screen, lost in a daze. Leo walked over and sat down beside her, gently taking her hand. Don't think too much about it, he said softly. We already did a great job. Claire nodded weakly, forcing a smile. Yeah, we did. They both tried to be strong for each other, offering words of comfort and encouragement, not wanting the other to feel the heavy weight on their own heart. But even as they spoke the same reassuring words, they both knew the truth. We could have done better. Spirit Springs Mountain, the stormy night, the flash flood. As people who had been reborn, they had both heard about this disaster in the news from their past lives. But so much time had passed that the specific details of the location and date had faded from their memories. That night, in a moment of crisis, they had remembered. Against the clock, they had managed to evacuate the villagers and children from Pinding Village and the Hope School. It was a monumental act of kindness. But now, watching the news footage of the casualties in the other villages, their hearts were still heavy. In their past lives, this had all just been a story on the news, an article in a newspaper. When the cries are distant, it's hard to truly empathize. But this time, they had been there. They had experienced it firsthand. They understood the terrifying power of nature, the helplessness and despair it brought. And this was just a small-scale flood in one mountainous region. The casualties were only in the dozens. It was Anna's innocent remark that morning that had truly struck their hearts, making them seize with a sudden, sharp tremor. It was now April of 2008. The flood on Spirit Springs Mountain had only made ripples within the province. But soon, in May, there would be a national tragedy. That night, in a master bedroom of the LNS house, There was no romance or intimacy. The young couple on the bed simply held each other quietly, but from angles where the other couldn't see, they both lay with their eyes open, unable to sleep. They shared the same heavy secret. Even knowing it was impossible, they couldn't stop the thought from forming. If that world-shaking disaster is truly coming, is there anything I can do? The next day, Sunday, when they woke up, both Leo and Claire had the weary look of a sleepless night. But when their eyes met, they forced themselves to look cheerful, not wanting the other to worry. The weight on their hearts, however, had not lifted. Even after a night of contemplation, they had no answers. In the face of such a colossal natural disaster, what could one person possibly do? An individual's power was infinitesimal. How could a mortal body stand against the might of nature? It was beyond tilting at windmills. It was beyond overestimating one's abilities. Even if someone wanted to do something, could they really achieve anything? How would they do it? How could they make people believe them? A rash, reckless act would not only be useless, but could also cause even greater panic. Not to mention, if they actually did something before it had any real effect, how much suspicion and controversy would it attract? How would they explain themselves? The thousands of complicated thoughts tangled into a hopeless knot. Just trying to think about it was enough to make one feel a crushing sense of powerlessness. But the memory of the flood they had personally witnessed and the heartbreaking images on the news sparked a sense of defiance in both of them. And because of that defiance, they refused to give up so easily. That evening, Leo and Claire went to the beach to clear their minds. They took off their shoes and socks and walked barefoot on the sand. When they grew tired, they sat down side by side, watching the distant ocean, their minds empty. The sea breeze blew, bringing a gentle coolness and the rhythmic sound of the waves, gradually calming their spirits. They sat like that for a long time, watching the ocean without a word. After what felt like an eternity, Leo, Claire, they both started to speak at the same time, then stopped and looked at each other. Leo smiled. "You first." Claire nodded. She turned back to the ocean and said softly, "There's something I don't know if I should do." Leo was taken aback. "What kind of thing?" Claire thought for a moment. "Something very difficult. So difficult that I don't know if I could do it right, or even how to do it at all." Leo asked, "Is there anything I can do to help?" Claire took a deep breath and shook her head. "No, this is something I have to do myself." Leo paused, then looked at her. "What happens if you don't do it?" This time, it was Claire's turn to pause. After another moment of thought, she pointed to her chest. "If I don't do it, my conscience couldn't live with it." In that instant, something stirred in Leo's heart. When he looked at his girlfriend again, a gentle smile had appeared on his face. "Then do it," he said. "No matter what, as long as you can live with your choice, that's all that matters." As he spoke, he gently took her hand. "Regardless of success or failure, no matter the outcome, I'll be with you." Feeling the warmth of his hand, meeting his gentle gaze, Claire felt a sense of peace settle over her. She nodded. "Okay." Then, remembering, she looked back at him. "What about you? What were you going to say?" Leo smiled again. "Nothing. The question I was going to ask. I already have my answer." Claire nodded once more, not pressing him. The young couple sat side by side, holding hands, feeling the warmth from each other's palms. They didn't speak anymore, but it was as if their inner turmoil and hesitation had, in that moment, quietly been resolved. A decision had been made. The moonlight fell like water, casting the shadows of the boy and girl onto the sand, intertwined. The sea breeze carried the last few words of their conversation. "Leo, I'm probably going to be pretty busy for a while." "Yeah, me too." "Well then, let's do our best." That night, on the beach, the boy and girl had no idea how that conversation had solidified their shared purpose. Even though they still didn't know the truth about each other's origins, and even though what they were about to attempt was an act of audacious defiance, when two people who had been reborn made the same decision, perhaps they really did have a chance to create a few small miracles. Monday afternoon, at Berkeley's new campus, Leo walked briskly into the art studio after his advertising class. Isabella Zhao, now the head of Mako Entertainment's art team, rushed over with a stack of sketches. "Hey, what's the rush today? We haven't even finished last week's assignment." Isabella habitually grumbled, but her hands were steady as she handed the sketches to her boss for review. "Here, these are the new ones. I've checked the others' work too. The quality should be fine. I even helped adjust some of the ones that weren't up to par." As she spoke, the former campus it girl proudly puffed out her chest, looking for praise. But what she got was not her boss's usual grand promises and compliments. Leo took the sketches, gave them a cursory glance, and set them aside. His next words left Isabella stunned. "Put the battle through the heavens project on hold for now. I have a new assignment for you. Isabella was baffled. Oh, a new assignment? Before she could finish, Leo slid a printed task list in front of her. She took it automatically as his calm, steady voice continued. According to this list, I need you and your team to produce a large number of Q-style characters and illustrations. You'll be in charge of standardizing the art style. It's not difficult, but the quantity is large. What's listed here is just a small part. I'll send you the rest online later. The deadline is tight. I need the first draft of the initial batch by tomorrow morning. I want the final versions of this entire first batch in 3 days. The rapid-fire instructions left Isabella's head spinning. She looked down at the new task list. The sheer volume of work made the hairs on her arms stand up. As an increasingly experienced artist, she could estimate the immense effort required with just a glance. It was nearly impossible to complete within the time frame he had given. However, just as she looked up to protest, Leo's gaze met hers. Can you do it? His tone was still calm, but his expression was one of sharp authority she had never seen before. It sent a jolt through her. For some reason, the words of protest died in her throat. She clenched her jaw and nodded fiercely. Yes, but I don't have enough people. I need more staff. Leo didn't even think about it. Then hire more. You're the team leader. You're in charge. I only care about progress and results. Isabella clenched her fists. This is a heavy workload. Everyone will have to work overtime. They'll need overtime pay. Again, without hesitation, overtime will be paid separately. Double. Isabella took a deep breath. And me. But before she could finish, he had already turned to leave. As he walked out the door, he left one final sentence hanging in the air. You get 5 times. The tone was flat, but the words landed like thunder. Isabella's eyes widened, her beautiful face a mask of disbelief. When she came to her senses, she took a sharp breath. I'm all in. Out of the school gates. Hailed a cab, sped toward the next destination. The villa on Wooding Road. Happy Nest headquarters. Over the weekend, Happy Nest had just expanded, renting out all 3 floors of the building. They had also hired a large number of new employees, tapping into the networks of David Chung, Penny Fong, and Owen Wu to recruit top talent from the industry. The first-floor lobby was filled with new hires, their spirits high, eagerly awaiting a speech from their big boss. Leo pushed the door open and walked in. All eyes turned to him. The veteran employees, who had been lounging in their chairs and boasting to the newcomers, shot to their feet with excited grins. Mr. Wallace! Mr. Wallace! The new recruits, elites from top tech companies and prestigious universities, saw the handsome young man enter and witnessed the veteran employees' respectful attitude. Realization dawned, and they were stunned. Mr. Wallace! This was him, the other legendary pillar of Happy Nest. The chief strategy officer who was practically on par with Mr. Chung. A wave of murmurs rippled through the room. Leo gave a slight nod, but his pace didn't slow. He walked through the crowd that parted for him automatically. He saw David Chung coming down the stairs, who looked equally surprised and delighted to see him. You're here early today. Leo grunted in acknowledgement and quickly met him on the stairs. Come upstairs with me. Get Penny, Owen, and the other department heads. We're having a meeting. David froze, his expression turning serious. This was the first time he had ever seen Leo like this. He didn't hesitate. All department heads, upstairs for a meeting. The order sent a shockwave through the company. As the managers and directors hurried upstairs, the new hires were dumbfounded. The veteran employees, however, had shed their lazy demeanor, their backs straightening like spears. They could feel it. This time, Mr. Wallace was leading the company into a new, tough battle. Same day, same moment, downtown, in the Central Business District, the Sterling Holdings headquarters. A figure in a black trench coat stepped out of a taxi and walked directly into the lobby. The beautiful receptionist at the front desk was stunned by the girl's appearance, feeling a pang of inadequacy. Composing herself, she smiled and asked, "Hello, miss. How can I help you?" The girl's voice was calm and detached. "I'm here to see Charles Sterling." The receptionist froze, then regained her composure and said apologetically, "I'm sorry, but our chairman doesn't see guests without an appointment." But the girl was already walking toward the elevators. "Don't worry, he'll see me." The receptionist hurried to intercept her. "Miss, you need a special access card for the 37th floor. Other than the chairman and a few vice presidents, no one is allowed up there." Before she could finish, the girl had already stepped into an open elevator. She pulled out a black and gold access card and swiped it over the sensor. As the receptionist watched in disbelief, the button for the 37th floor lit up. Inside the elevator, the girl finally looked back at the receptionist, her gaze calm and appraising. She gave a slight nod. Diligent. Good attitude. Send your resume to HR. From now on, you work for me. The elevator doors slid shut. The glass elevator began its ascent. The beautiful receptionist was left standing in front of the closed doors, completely thunderstruck. A moment later, she realized who the girl must be. She sucked in a sharp breath, a chill running down her spine. Was that the legendary one? The glass elevator rose, heading straight for the 37th floor of Sterling Holdings. Inside, the girl stood with a calm and composed expression. She was unconcerned that her arrival, and the use of that special access card, was already sending shockwaves through the entire building. On every floor, in every office, a tide of commotion was rising among the Sterling employees. They couldn't help but turn and stare at the ascending elevator, all of them stunned by the cool, breathtaking beauty of the girl inside, and captivated by her innate, elegant grace. Whispers of the young boss and the Sterling air spread through the crowd. The elevator opened on the 37th floor. Claire stepped out and walked directly toward the chairman's office. The former Special Forces operative rushed to meet her, feeling as if the sky was about to fall. He thought she was here for another heart-stopping confession and was about to plead with her. Miss, please calm down. But Claire cut him off. Mr. Joe, step aside. I have business to attend to. Mr. Joe froze. In that instant, he felt his young Mrs. long absent, ice-cold, and formidable aura. The former soldier immediately stood at attention. Yes, ma'am. He turned and followed respectfully behind her. They walked to the end of the hallway. Without knocking, Claire pushed the door open. She met the startled gaze of Charles Sterling, who was rising from his desk. Without any preamble, the girl's voice was calm and direct. I need to use some of Sterling's resources. Charles was stunned, then nodded without a moment's hesitation. You ask. I'll approve. The sun set. The city entered the night. Quietly, the wind began to rise. A storm was coming. In the face of a colossal natural disaster, what can one person's meager power truly accomplish? No one knew the answer. Not Leo, and not Claire. They were simply doing everything they could, making every effort and attempt within their reach. That Monday night, a new interactive quiz game called Brainiac Blitz was proposed and approved at a Happy Nest headquarters meeting. It was immediately fast-tracked to the top of the project schedule. Someone at the meeting questioned Leo about it. Their chief strategy officer had already personally laid out the next few games for the company, such as Parking Wars and Friend Trader, which were universally agreed upon to be able to sustain the momentum of Garden Grab. Why suddenly insert this quiz game, disrupting the original strategic plan? Leo calmly explained. Parking Wars and Friend Trader are the same type of game as Garden Grab. They can only maintain the loyalty of our existing user base. Brainiac Blitz is different. Like the name compatibility test, it's designed to attract new user demographics. The former is a shield for defense. The latter is a sword for conquest. This company is a startup. We don't need watchdogs guarding the house. Every single one of you needs to be a wolf. As he finished, every department head sat up straighter. David Chung, the CEO, slammed his fist on the table, personally approving the plan. In the heated discussion that followed, everyone brainstormed ideas for the quiz game's question banks. Someone suggested different difficulty levels and specialized topics. Users in the Midwest could have a civil service exam topic. They could also collaborate with official organizations to spread public service knowledge. A fire safety topic, a first aid topic. The East Coast could have a hurricane knowledge topic, and the Southwest region could have. The discussion hit a snag. The room fell into a thoughtful silence. A voice cut through from the side. You could do a geological disaster prevention topic. It was Leo, his expression composed, as if he had just thought of it on the spot. For that one sentence, he had spent the entire evening laying the groundwork. That same night, in a small, high-level meeting at Sterling Holdings, oversight of the group's Southwest regional projects was quietly transferred into the hands of a certain young woman. In the 37th floor chairman's office, Claire slapped a thick stack of account books onto the coffee table. The several Sterling executives in attendance broke out in a cold sweat, silent as cicadas in winter. The books had been cooked. On the surface, everything looked rosy, but it was just a shell game, robbing Peter to pay Paul. Charles Sterling cleared his throat and asked his daughter how she planned to handle it. Claire's cool. Calm voice echoed in the office. It's simple. You all have too many connections, too many personal ties. Your hands have gone soft. You can't wield the knife anymore. So I'll do it. The casual words carried a chilling, murderous intent that made the powerful men in the room tremble. But Charles's eyes flashed with gratification and admiration. "Where will you make the first cut?" Claire's expression remained unchanged, as if she had been preparing for this her whole life. The Southwest is Sterling's most important division. Step 1. Audit the Southwest. All projects from the last 3 years will be re-evaluated and reapproved. The pride in Charles's eyes deepened. "There are a lot of projects in the Southwest. Where will you start?" Claire answered, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. "Real estate is the most important sector in the Southwest Division. We start by auditing the real estate." For that one sentence, the girl had to use all her strength to make it sound so casual, so effortless. The 2 meetings dragged on late into the night. When the young couple, exhausted, finally returned to the L&S house, their eyes met in the living room. The boy just smiled. "Hungry? I'll make you a late-night snack." The girl smiled back. "Okay, I'll keep you company." In the kitchen, Leo worked skillfully at the stove. As always, Claire stood behind him, wrapping her arms around his waist and pressing her body against his. No more words were exchanged. They could feel each other's fatigue, but didn't point it out, understanding the other's desire not to cause worry. In moments like these, talk was unnecessary. Simply being together was the best medicine. The following week, they only became busier. As the creator of a new project, Leo had to coordinate with every department at Happy Nest, managing progress and direction. He was constantly rushing between the company and school, from one meeting to the next. He also had to provide continuous feedback to Isabella Zhao's team at Mako Entertainment. His workload was at its absolute maximum. At the same time, Claire had to make frequent trips to Sterling Holdings. In a new office her father had cleared for her on the 37th floor, a steady stream of audit reports from the Southwest region flowed in. She led a team of Sterling executives and key managers, meticulously reviewing each project line by line. Any problems were sent straight back to the Southwest. Any real estate projects of questionable quality, factories, buildings, school dorms, were all subjected to internal quality inspections. No excuses, no mercy. But people are not made of iron. Under the crushing weight of an immense workload and high-pressure stress, they grew tired. Every day, they worked late into the night, racing against time, not daring to slack off for even a moment. Sometimes, Claire would return to the L&S house late at night, exhausted. She would tiptoe in, try not to wake her boyfriend, only to see the light in the study still on. When she walked in, she would find him at his computer, also working late, having finally succumbed to exhaustion and fallen asleep at his desk. She would gently approach, her heart aching, wanting to drape a jacket over his shoulders to keep him warm. But he would stir, looking up to meet her gaze with a warm smile. "You're back? I left some porridge warming in the kitchen for you. I'll go get it." Other times, Leo would be in meetings at Happy Nest until the early hours of the morning. He would return home under the stars, covered in the morning dew, only to find the girl asleep on the couch, clutching a stack of documents, her long legs curled up, looking small and fragile. Leo would walk over, gently take the files from her arms, and set them aside. Then he would carefully lift her, preparing to carry her upstairs. But she would wake in his arms, rubbing her sleepy eyes, and instinctively wrap her arms around his neck. Leo would chide her softly. "Why didn't you go to bed?" Claire would bury her head in his chest, slowly closing her eyes again, her voice a sleepy mumble. "I wanted to wait for you. Together." They never once asked what the other was so busy with. The things they were fighting for already consumed all their energy, and they couldn't explain it to the other anyway. And no matter how tired they were, when they came home, they still tried to act cheerful in front of each other, to give the other peace and warmth. The night was dark. In the bedroom, the boy and girl, weary to their bones, slept in each other's arms, keeping each other company, neither of them knowing that they were fighting side by side on the same battlefield, quietly weathering the storm together. Time flowed on, but for Leo and Claire, the pressure only grew heavier with each passing day. At Happy Nest, Leo slammed his hand on the table in several meetings, a rare sight. He sent the work of several departments who had missed their deadlines back to be redone. The employees, unaccustomed to seeing their usually easygoing boss so angry, were both chastened and defiant. They gritted their teeth and swore they wouldn't disappoint their 2 bosses again. During a call with his Mako Entertainment art team, the quality of the sketches had dropped due to the rush. Leo spoke harshly to Isabella for the first time. On the other end of the line, the campus girl's eyes welled up, but she didn't make any excuses. She clenched her jaw and said, "I'll get the team to fix it. It won't happen again." At Sterling Holdings, the problems were just as difficult. Claire's aggressive audits were turning the Southwest Division's past several years of operations inside out. She showed no mercy, leaving no room for negotiation. This sent waves of panic through the company's other divisions and upper management. Some protested, complaining to the higher-ups that such a strict review was doing more harm than good, that the young boss was too young and too radical, and that they should proceed more slowly. The feedback reached the 37th floor. Even Charles Sterling had a private conversation with his daughter, his brow furrowed with worry and concern. Aren't you pushing too hard? The pressure you're putting on yourself is immense. But Claire simply picked up a thick stack of files and turned to leave for her next meeting. She left her father, the chairman of Sterling Holdings, with a single, calm sentence. I can handle it. Their efforts paid off. In mid-April, Happiness's new game, Brainiac Blitz, was launched after the entire company worked around the clock. The educational quiz-style player-versus-player game allowed friends to challenge each other in various categories. Within 24 hours of its launch, it had once again taken the entire domestic internet by storm. Happiness registered user count soared past the 20 million mark. At the same time, the internal audit of Sterling's Southwest division successfully rooted out a large number of corrupt managers. Under the young woman's decisive leadership, the atmosphere in the division was completely transformed. More importantly, the Real Estate Safety Inspection Initiative she spearheaded won praise from government officials, who then contacted them to propose a new round of joint reviews for all projects deemed questionable. But this meant that Leo and Claire's work was about to become even more demanding. In late April, Happiness received an invitation from government offices and major universities in the Southwest region to promote a new Brainiac Blitz quiz topic focused on public service knowledge. As CEO, David Chung needed to stay and manage the headquarters. The company needed a high-level executive to represent them. Leo, the chief strategy officer, didn't hesitate. He would go himself. Simultaneously, the cleanup at Sterling's Southwest division had implicated a number of mid to high-level personnel with deep-rooted connections. Progress was inevitably met with resistance. From her office on the 37th floor of the Sterling Holdings headquarters, Claire made her decision. If no one else dares to make a move, I'll do it myself. On Friday evening, Leo and Claire spoke on the phone. They were both about to leave their respective headquarters and head to the airport, but they both hid the truth from each other, their voices casual and light. I've got something this weekend. I'll probably be busy for a couple of days. Okay, take care of yourself. Wait for me to come home. After hanging up, they arrived at the airport one after the other. Their flights, scheduled just moments apart, took off into the night sky, heading for the same destination. In the Southwest, they spent 2 frantic days, barely having time to talk on the phone. Finally, exhausted and travel-worn, they arrived at the Southwest airport for their return flights. Standing on the tarmac, the girl walked up the jet bridge as the wind howled around her. She called her boyfriend. I'll be home tonight. Just a few hundred feet away, in front of the Southwest airport terminal, Leo, holding his phone and suitcase, was getting out of a taxi. Yeah, me too. On the jet bridge, the fierce wind whipped the girl's long hair into the air. Claire looked up at the night sky, filled with stars. I'm probably very far away from you. If you look up, can you see the stars? In front of the terminal, the night wind whipped the boy's trench coat around him. He held his phone and tilted his head back to look at the same starry sky. Yeah, I can see them. The sky is beautiful tonight. It's like the stars we saw on Mount Jade. When we go back to Northwood for winter break, let's go again. Okay, Leo. I'm here. I miss you. Me too. The night sky was vast, the stars brilliant. The boy and girl stood in a foreign place, bathed in the same starlight. A deep, complex emotion swelled within them, so powerful it felt like tears were about to fall. If you had the chance to live your life over again, what regrets would you want to fix? Nothing else. Only that your friends and family are safe and the one you love is by your side. And that every family in the world, every couple in love, could be the same. Early May, the second Monday. The afternoon breeze was gentle, the sun warm. Claire wasn't feeling well and took the afternoon off to rest at the LNS house. Leo skipped his classes to stay home with her. They lay on the couch, the girl's slender body curled up against her boyfriend's chest. Leo gently held her hand. The air was silent. No words were spoken. They didn't know where to begin, so they tried to hide their turmoil. Claire's hand was a little cold. Leo didn't notice. Neither of them realized it because in that moment, both of their hands were cold. Time ticked by second. Until that moment. Claire whispered, Leo, I'm a little cold. Leo gently pulled her closer, holding her tight. They clung to each other, trying to offer what little warmth they could. On this day, the news, as inevitable as fate, spread across the land with heart-stopping speed. The mountains and rivers trembled. The entire nation mourned as one. At first, it was an urgent interruption on every TV and radio station. The news anchor's face was grave, his voice strained as he tried to remain steady and report the event. At first, everyone thought they had misheard, or that the normally staid national news was playing a cruel, elaborate joke. But then more and more sources confirmed it. One piece of information after another poured in from the disaster zone in the Southwest. Finally, people accepted that the news was real. Some people's eyes instantly turned red. Many more were so shocked by the cataclysmic news that their minds went blank, a roaring in their ears that nearly made them stumble. When they came back to their senses, everyone frantically grabbed their phones, turned on their computers, trying every possible way to find out more. At the LNS house, Leo and Claire's phones suddenly rang in unison. They both instinctively moved to get up and answer them separately. As Claire stood, her legs felt weak, and she nearly fell. Leo quickly caught her. "Are you okay?" Only when he spoke did Leo realize his own throat was tight and dry. Claire bit her lip hard and managed a shake of her head. "I'm fine," but her voice was faint and trembling. However, when one went into the study and the other into the guest room to answer their phones, they both took a deep breath. In that instant, both Leo and Claire forced themselves into a state of absolute calm. "Go on." It was David Chung on the phone for Leo. The CEO of Happiness Voice was more solemn and heavy than he had ever heard it. They quickly exchanged information, and after confirming the news once more, David made a decision. "We're suspending Garden Grab for 7 days. Leo nodded. He tried to organize his thoughts, to remain as calm as possible as he provided his partner with more plans and instructions. Claire, on the other hand, was on the phone with Sterling Holdings. The person on the other end was in such a panic they could barely speak coherently. A sharp command from Claire snapped them back to reality. Under her calm, rapid-fire questioning, she pieced together a fragmented report, confirming the status of the Southwest Division's personnel and assets. They needed more information. Then get it. At any cost, re-establish contact with the Southwest Division as soon as possible. After hanging up, they both walked back into the living room. Their eyes met, and they struggled to speak, both starting at the same time. The Southwest, they both stopped. Claire looked at Leo, her eyes slowly turning red. Even as someone who had been reborn, even with the foreknowledge she possessed, even after spending the last month desperately trying to prepare for this day, when the earth-shattering news finally arrived, it still struck her heart with devastating force, the pain spreading through her entire being. Leo stepped forward and pulled her into his arms, holding her tight. They clung to each other, seeking warmth. But the moment of comfort was brief. A few seconds later, Claire resolutely pulled away from his embrace, looked at him, and said with quiet determination, "I have to go out." Leo took a deep breath and nodded. "I'll take you." In the face of a colossal disaster, as the earth cracked and mountains crumbled, while people were still reeling in shock and grief, the machine of the nation had already roared to life. Within an hour of the disaster, a Level 1 emergency response was activated. Countless rescue teams, experts, doctors, soldiers, mobilized from all corners of the country and advanced toward the disaster zone. Then, the entire nation awoke from its grief. A countrywide mobilization began. Rescue supplies were transported to the affected areas with a speed that would shock the world. People began to spontaneously line up at blood donation centers, waiting in the wind and rain. On the highways leading to the Southwest, countless vehicles carrying personnel and supplies pressed forward. On every media platform on the internet, a flood of support and encouragement poured in, eventually coalescing into two powerful words that shook the soul. Southwest, stay strong. This night, no one in the country slept. The lights of the Sterling Holdings headquarters in the downtown CBD burned brightly. On the 36th floor, the main conference room was packed. The air was thick with voices. When it was confirmed that the personnel of the company's Southwest Division were largely safe, a wave of relief washed over the room. Then, all eyes turned to the young woman seated at the head of the long conference table, their gazes filled with awe and respect. Claire's expression was as cool and calm as ever. Her words were rapid fire, issuing one command after another. The company's personnel in the Southwest were mostly unharmed, but the situation was still dire. They were to mobilize all available manpower and resources. After ensuring their own safety, they were to provide full support to the relief efforts. This night, at the Happiness headquarters, people rushed back and forth through the lobby. The sounds of ringing phones, clattering keyboards, urgent conversations, and heated debates from the conference room all blended together. The entire staff, fighting through their shock and grief, gritted their teeth, and battled on at their posts, doing everything they could to contribute their own small part to the relief effort. Finally, the door to the CEO's office opened. The department heads emerged, flanking two figures. The eyes of every employee fell upon the two core leaders of the company, their faces filled with reverence and eager anticipation. David Chung and Leo exchanged a look. Leo gave a slight nod. David turned to face the entire staff in the lobby and announced in a deep voice, "Mr. Wallace and I have just finalized a new plan. Everyone, take this down." The lobby fell silent for a second, then erupted in a unified roar of acknowledgement. This night, the nation rose from its grief, gritting its teeth to face the catastrophe head-on. Rescue teams from all directions surged forward, fearless in the face of the storm, searching through every dangerous ruin, refusing to give up on a single life. Donations and supplies were collected from all over the country. People spontaneously gathered in schools, parks, and public squares, lighting candles and praying for the disaster zone. Online, Happiness homepage had been changed to black and white. A banner, personally written by the company's chief strategy officer, stretched across the top with 6 words, "Tonight, we are all together." This night, the flames of prayerful candles flickered across the entire nation. They wavered in the wind and rain, but they burned with a stubborn, unyielding light, never to be extinguished. The next day, the search and rescue operations continued. The teams that had reached the southwest worked tirelessly, digging through rubble and debris, searching for survivors. A steady stream of supplies and donations continued to pour into the disaster zone from all corners of the country. But as time passed, the chances of finding anyone alive beneath the ruins dwindled. The number of confirmed casualties, however, continued to climb at a heart-stopping pace. Countless people found their eyes turning red just looking at the staggering numbers on their screens. A reporter, interviewing a father who had lost his daughter, broke down and wept, unable to control his emotions. A government official, disheveled but trying to remain calm while giving a briefing, suddenly began to sob uncontrollably in front of the cameras. The anchorwoman on the national evening news began to read the latest casualty figures, but her voice slowly started to tremble and crack with unshed tears, sending a shudder through the hearts of viewers across the nation. The torrential rains in the southwest cast a heavy, dark cloud over the entire country. But it is disaster that tests the true character of a nation. The people of this land had endured countless hardships throughout their history, but their spirit had never been broken. The weather was brutal, apocalyptic. The odds of finding more survivors grew slimmer by the hour. Yet, no one chose to give up. The rescue continued. The supplies kept coming. One search and rescue team after another gritted their teeth, braving the rain and danger on the front lines. When they had no tools, they used their bare hands, digging through the wreckage until their fingers were raw and bleeding, determined to carve a path of hope for their countrymen. The people in the disaster zone organized themselves. Companies and local businesses rallied their employees, joining the search efforts or setting up makeshift kitchens to cook for the elderly and the children. The head of Sterling Holdings' Southwest branch, despite his own injuries, received instructions from the young master back at headquarters. He turned his branch's office building and other structurally sound properties into shelters, providing a shield against the wind and rain for his fellow citizens. Online, people worked to gather and verify information, compiling lists of aid channels and sharing them with anyone who could help. Under the direction of its CEO and chief strategy officer, Happiness rushed to launch a new feature. After manual verification, users could post help requests from the disaster zone. The site compiled these into lists, using its platform to help make the search and rescue efforts as efficient as possible. When one corner of the country is in trouble, help comes from all sides. When a nation awoke from its grief, when hundreds of millions of people strained every nerve for their fellow citizens, it was all for one single, unwavering belief. As long as there is a glimmer of hope, we will never abandon them. We will never give up. If you have warmth, share your light. Even if the disaster extinguished civilization's torch, so long as everyone stood united, every single person in this nation could become their own source of light, enough to pierce the dark clouds and illuminate the world. So what if the earth shook and the mountains crumbled? This nation, forged over centuries, had always been strengthened by adversity. The number of survivors pulled from the rubble began to rise, slowly but surely. Every time a wounded person was carried out from the ruins, a chorus of urgent questions would erupt from the crowd. How are they? Are they alive? And when the thrilling, affirmative answer came back, almost everyone would break into a jubilant cheer. They're alive. Still alive. Gradually, miracles began to happen. The story of the boy who survived for days on nothing but soda. The pig found alive after being buried for over a month. The 108 students saved by a selfless teacher who broke every rule to get them out. Every story was deeply moving. Every story brought tears to the eyes. And then, roars of celebration. The cheers seemed to travel across the country, a tidal wave of sound. It wasn't just excitement and joy. It was a proud declaration, delivered through tears. It was telling the heavens, telling the entire world, this ancient and resilient nation cannot be defeated. In the face of overwhelming disaster, the unity and strength demonstrated by the people of this land was enough to move the world, to shake the very heavens. On the seventh day after the quake, the nation mourned. Public entertainment was suspended in a solemn tribute to the victims in the Southwest. On this day, a charity gala was held in Washington, D.C., to raise funds for the disaster victims. Major corporations and organizations were invited to attend. Sterling Holdings and Happy Nest, both of which had made significant contributions, were on the list. David Chung explained the situation to Leo, intending for them to go together. Charles Sterling also spoke with Claire, hoping that his daughter, who had given the most, would represent Sterling Holdings at the event. Both of them declined. At the gala in D.C., the head of Sterling's Southwest branch donated $200 million on behalf of the company. Happiness CEO, David Chung, representing the site's 32 million users, donated $32 million. As they received a round of heartfelt applause and praise, at that very same moment, Leo and Claire were on the Berkeley campus. With their roommates and classmates, they stood by the small river on campus, lighting candles, laying flowers, and releasing biodegradable lanterns into the sky, sending prayers and wishes to the people of the Southwest. For the living, a prayer. For the dead, a memorial. As the lanterns, carrying their grief and hopes, floated up into the night, the boy and the girl held each other close. They gazed up at the pinpricks of light, dotting the dark expanse, silent. They simply felt each other's presence, each other's warmth. Thinking back on the past month, their minds swirled with emotion. And with it, a long-overdue sense of peace and relief. Reborn into this life. In the end, his own meager power wasn't enough to hold back the sky, not like the protagonists in novels. But at least, he had done what he could. He could live with his conscience. The pain of the disaster could perhaps only be healed by time. The dead were gone. But the living had to keep going, carrying the memory of their lost friends, family, and countrymen with them. It was precisely by experiencing such hardship and loss that one learned to cherish the life they had and the people beside them. May 21 SD. Quietly, it was Claire Sterling's birthday. But the girl was in no mood to celebrate. She politely declined the enthusiastic suggestions from her roommates and friends. She spent the day in a conference room at the Sterling Holdings headquarters, busy wrapping up the final details of the relief efforts for the Southwest branch. Through the conference room's glass wall, a certain chairman of the board watched, his heart aching. That girl, she's been at it for over a month. It's her birthday today. Standing beside him, the retired Special Forces soldier offered a cautious suggestion. Sir, maybe you could say something to her? Help her celebrate a little. Charles Sterling paused, then shook his head with a calm, resigned expression. Forget it. That child is stubborn. I can't force her. The truth was, he'd already tried. He had forced a smile, plastered it on his face, and approached his daughter. Before he could even get the first word out, the girl had simply looked up, her cool, indifferent gaze sweeping over him. She didn't say a word, but her eyes clearly spelled out one, scram. Then, the chairman's annoyance flared up again. Doesn't she have a boyfriend? That punk does nothing useful, and now on her birthday, he's nowhere to be found. What's the point of him? Completely unreliable. Outside, the chairman grumbled under his breath. Inside the conference room, Claire's phone rang. She answered it. A familiar, warm voice came from the other end. Are you done yet? I'm in the city. I'm coming to find you. A gentle smile finally appeared on the girl's cool, detached face. Okay, the hardest part is finally written. A long sigh of relief. After hanging up, Claire spent a few more minutes talking with the Sterling employees in the conference room. Once she confirmed that all the remaining tasks were clearly assigned, she turned and walked out. In the hallway, Charles Sterling saw his daughter emerge, and his face lit up. He hurried over to meet her. Finished with work? I told you, you can just leave the rest of this to the people under you. Don't work yourself so hard. Claire shot a cool glance at the chairman. Moo, I'm going to get dinner. Charles froze for a second, then quickly recovered. Dinner? Great. Dad hasn't eaten either. Let's go together. It's your birthday after all. What do you want to eat? I'll book a restaurant for you. Claire's expression remained flat. No need. I can't have any extraneous personnel tonight. The chairman blinked, then beat his chest emphatically. Of course not. What extraneous personnel? Dad won't bring anyone. I'll tell the grunts to stay behind. It'll just be the two of us. Claire looked him up and down. You are the extraneous personnel. Charles Sterling. The chairman was completely baffled. If he, her own father, was considered extraneous personnel, then who in the world was his daughter going to eat with? A second later, it dawned on him. The chairman's eye twitched. Don't tell me you're going with your... Claire nodded calmly. My boyfriend. Even though he'd expected it, hearing the word boyfriend still felt like a sharp jab to the chairman's heart. It felt like some punk had snuck into his house and stabbed him in the back. Charles took a deep breath and forced a smile. Oh, I see. What? Is he coming to pick you up? Since he's already here, why don't I come down with you and we can meet him? Inside the chairman's mind, a tiny, cartoon version of himself was already twisting its face into a demonic snarl, sharpening a butcher's knife. Claire looked at her old man. No need. You're busy. Charles waved his hands dismissively, his expression growing even more enthusiastic. How could I be? Dad has nothing to do today. Even if I did, if it's to meet your boyfriend, I can push it all aside. Ha ha. His laughter was hearty and magnanimous. Claire's expression remained perfectly calm. She just looked at him, not saying a word. The chairman's laughter gradually stiffened, then faded. Under his daughter's placid gaze, he began to break into a cold sweat. Charles swallowed hard, trying to stay composed. Well, but then again, Dad does have some important business to take care of today. So let's just save the meeting for next time. Ha! Amid the chairman's hollow laughter, his dear daughter walked straight past her old man and headed for the elevator. It wasn't until he watched the elevator doors close on his precious girl that Charles Sterling's expression changed dramatically, his face contorting with gritted teeth. That damn punk. He actually came to celebrate Claire's birthday. Even I, her own father, don't get to be a part of it. This is outrageous. Unforgivable. Mr. Joe, wouldn't you agree? He suddenly threw the question at the retired Special Forces soldier standing beside him. Mr. Joe was still wiping away cold sweat, relieved that the dreaded three-way meeting had been averted. Hearing his boss's question, he nodded gravely. You're right, Mr. Sterling. The more Charles thought about it, the angrier he got, his teeth grinding together. No, that punk is here. Today, I have to see for myself who this character is. Mr. Joe, let's go. He rolled up his sleeves and prepared to storm the elevator. Mr. Joe, horrified, quickly stepped in to block him. Mr. Sterling, calm down. Miss Sterling just said, if you go down there rashly, she'll be upset. That one sentence stopped the chairman in his tracks. The image of his daughter's angry face flashed in his mind. Charles shivered and immediately deflated. You're right. I can't let some punk damage my relationship with my daughter. But he still wasn't willing to let it go. A light bulb went off in his head. In the next second, his eyes lit up as he looked at his trusted subordinate. Then you go. Mr. Joe was stunned. Huh. The more Charles considered it, the more he was convinced this was the solution. His face took on a determined expression. Yes, you go. This is a rare opportunity. That punk managed to hide from you, a former top recon soldier, for almost half a year without being spotted. He's finally slipped up. Aren't you curious what he looks like? Mr. Joe. Actually, sir, I'm fine. Ignoring his subordinate's complicated feelings, the chairman waved his hand and gave a decisive order. That's settled. You get downstairs right now. I want you to get a good, clear look at that punk. Even better if you can get a picture. Then, as if a thought occurred to him, Charles paused and suddenly changed his tune. No, if it's convenient. The Sterling Holdings chairman's face turned murderous. He made a throat-slitting gesture at his right-hand man. Take care of him, Mr. Joe. It was hard to judge, but father and daughter were really cut from the same cloth. Downstairs, at the entrance of Sterling Holdings, Claire stepped out of the building. She was already on the phone with her boyfriend again. I'm downstairs. Are you here yet? As she spoke, the girl looked around. Soon, she spotted Leo's figure walking toward her from down the street. He was smiling and waving at her. A smile blossomed on Claire's face. She put her phone away and walked briskly to meet him. Without a hint of hesitation, she took her boyfriend's hand in a perfectly natural gesture. Let's go. Leo, however, was caught off guard by her sudden move. He instinctively glanced back at the Sterling Holdings building and ducked his head. You don't think your dad is watching, do you? Claire's tone was casual and calm. He won't be. He's busy. Then, holding his hand, she walked with a light step toward the curb. I'm hungry. Let's go eat. At that same moment, on the 37th floor of the Sterling Holdings headquarters in the chairman's office. The chairman, who had been in the hallway moments before, had practically sprinted to the floor-to-ceiling windows of his office. With a complete disregard for his image, he pressed his face against the glass, straining to see the street below. He could just make out the figure of his precious daughter, walking toward another boy. The floor was too high, the distance too great. He couldn't see his face clearly, but he had a feeling the kid was no good. And then, they held hands. Their posture was intimate. Charles could practically hear his own teeth grinding together. In that instant, the flames of his rage toward the home-wrecking punk threatened to engulf him. Just then, a vice president from Sterling Holdings walked in with a file, ready to report to his boss. Seeing the big boss plastered against the window, staring intently at the ground, he grew a little curious. "Mr. Sterling, what are you looking at?" The VP walked over and peered down as well. His sharp eyes immediately recognized the faint figure of the girl. "Hey, isn't that Claire? Who's she holding hands with? Wow, the kids at that age now, they look like a good match. You're a lucky man, Mr. Sterling." The VP laid on the flattery thick. Then he saw his big boss turn to look at him, his face devoid of expression. "Are you very idle lately?" The next day, the vice president, for the transgression of entering the office with his left foot first, received the chairman's special attention and praise. He was rewarded with triple his usual workload. The distance was too great. He couldn't feel the murderous aura emanating from the 37th floor. By now, Leo and Claire had hailed a cab and were settled in the back seat. Leo gave the driver an address. The car started smoothly, merging into the flow of traffic. Inside, Claire glanced at her boyfriend, a little curious. "Where are we going?" The address Leo had given sounded strangely familiar. Leo smiled. "Aren't you hungry? I'm taking you to eat. It's a pretty good place." The girl frowned slightly, a little concerned. "Nothing too expensive. Something simple is fine." Leo just smiled, squeezing her hand gently. "Don't worry, it's cheap and delicious." A short while later, the taxi arrived at its destination. The couple paid and got out. When Claire saw the restaurant in front of her, she froze, a momentary look of dazed confusion on her face. It wasn't a large restaurant, just an ordinary little diner. A sign hung above the door, the Lighthouse Diner. It was an utterly common name, nothing special about it at all. But Claire turned her head and stared at her boyfriend in a trance. "You brought me here?" Leo nodded, but couldn't help scratching his head, looking slightly embarrassed. "Yeah, I've eaten here a few times when I've come into the city. The decor is a little plain, but the owner is a really nice guy, and the food is great." As he spoke, Leo's gaze drifted to the sign above the door. A wave of memories washed over him. In his past life, he had come to the Lighthouse Diner countless times. It was right downstairs from the apartment complex where he used to live. After he started working, he would come to this diner for most of his birthdays, ordering a table of small dishes and drinking alone, including that rainy night on his 34th birthday in his past life. So, this place held a special significance for him. It held the memories of a lonely, desolate time, but also a faint sense of warmth and nostalgia. When Claire had told him, seriously and solemnly, that she didn't want a lavish birthday celebration, just a simple meal, he couldn't help but think of this place. Of course, he couldn't explain any of this to the girl in front of him. Seeing Claire staring at the sign, lost in thought, Leo worried she wasn't happy with his choice. He quickly added, "If you don't like it, we could go somewhere else." It was as if Claire had just woken from a dream. She came back to her senses. Meeting Leo's gaze, a smile spread across her face. "Not at all, I think. This place is perfect." They went inside. The main dining area was a bit quiet. The owner, a man barely in his 30s, came out to greet them with warm enthusiasm. He exchanged a few friendly words with Leo. They clearly already knew each other. When he saw Claire, his eyes widened in admiration. He gave Leo a thumbs up. "You're a lucky man." Leo smiled politely, then expertly ordered a tableful of food from the owner before turning to ask his girlfriend if she wanted anything else. From the moment she had stepped inside, Claire had been looking around, taking in every detail of the diner's decor and layout with a serious and careful eye. It was only when Leo spoke to her that she snapped out of it. She smiled faintly at the owner. "I'll add the fried liver and onions and the golden fried chicken wings, please." The owner was taken aback, then broke into a delighted grin, giving Claire another thumbs up. "You got a good eye, miss. You picked the best ones." Leo couldn't help but look surprised as well. "Those are the owner's specialties. You nailed them both." Claire smiled. "Really? Maybe I just have a connection with this place." As she spoke, her eyes swept over the interior again, a wave of nostalgia and reminiscence flowing through her. "Yes, She couldn't explain it to the boy beside her. But she knew this place, too. In her last life, she had also been here more than once. It was after the car crash. After she had settled Leo's parents back in their hometown, she had returned from Northwood to help them pack up his things from his home in the city. On her way out, she passed this diner across from his apartment complex. She had only intended to grab a quick bite, but the owner, then nearly 50, had spoken of him with a sad sigh, mentioning that he had been a regular before he passed away. He had spent every birthday here, but always he was alone. From that day on, she, too, became a semi-regular. Every time she returned to the city from Northwood, she would make a trip here. She would sit at the table he always sat at, order the dishes he always ordered, and even get 2 bottles of beer, trying to drink alone as he had. She just wanted to put herself in his shoes, to feel what he had felt. And in this life, perhaps by a twist of fate, she never expected that on her 19th birthday, she would be here again. But this time, things were different. Sitting down at the same round table they had both chosen in their past lives, Claire looked up at Leo, her eyes filled with warmth and a gentle smile. This life, neither he nor she were alone anymore. They were at the same table. Together, the food arrived dish by dish. None of it was fancy, and it was far from luxurious. It was just simple, home-style cooking, but it was fragrant and inviting, radiating a simple warmth. Watching his girlfriend eat with such focused enjoyment, a smile spread across Leo's face. He felt a sense of nostalgia and deep emotion. In his past life, he had sat in this very spot countless times, drinking alone. He couldn't help but indulge in the extravagant fantasy that one day, someone would be sitting here with him. A lifetime apart, his wish had finally come true. Claire looked up and saw him staring off into space with a goofy grin. She was both amused and exasperated. She picked up a golden fried chicken wing with her chopsticks and placed it in his bowl. "Idiot, what are you smiling about? It's going to get cold if you don't eat." Leo snapped back to reality and quickly smiled in agreement. He picked up his chopsticks and dug in. Watching her boyfriend eat with such gusto, Claire felt a warmth spread through her heart, a feeling of happiness and contentment. In her past life, every time she came here, sat here, she could only try to imagine it. But now, she had traveled through time and space, across mountains and seas, to find her way to this life. This life, she didn't have to imagine. The person she had been searching for was right beside her. The beer they had ordered arrived. Leo poured 2 glasses, raised his, and smiled at Claire. "Cheers." Claire smiled back, raising her glass and clinking it against his. "Cheers." They touched glasses, then both took a long drink. Setting down their glasses, the couple looked at each other and smiled in perfect understanding. Leo gently took Claire's hand. "Happy birthday." But Claire shook her head. "That's not right." She paused, and meeting her boyfriend's puzzled gaze, she smiled. "Because you're here. That's why it's a happy birthday. Don't worry. What you're waiting for is coming soon. The story of the father-in-law and son-in-law meeting is going to be explosive. Next, I'll start tying up loose ends one by one. It's going to be high energy all the way. Please send gifts." The same street, the same restaurant. At the same table, 2 figures from different timelines had once passed each other by. But tonight, finally, they overlapped. The regret of what was missed was gone. The boy and girl at the table talked and laughed, occasionally raising their glasses for a toast. It was a picture of happiness and peace. After they had eaten their fill, Leo excused himself to go to the restroom. When he returned, he produced a birthday cake from behind his back, as if by magic. Claire couldn't help but cover her mouth, her eyes wide with surprised delight. "You had this prepared." She glanced outside. "Is there a bakery nearby?" Leo grinned. "Yep, Gilded Phoenix Bakery." He pulled out the Gilded Phoenix membership card that Mr. Chien had given him on his own birthday and waggled it at her. "Premium VIP, 40% off." Claire couldn't help but laugh. Leo placed the cake on the table and went to have a word with the owner at the front counter. Since there were no other customers in the diner, the owner happily agreed to dim the lights for a moment. The room grew dark. The candles on the cake flickered to life. Leo hummed the birthday song as Claire, smiling, closed her eyes and made a wish with her hands clasped together. Then she opened her eyes, leaned forward, and blew out the candles in one breath. Leo applauded enthusiastically and asked casually, "What did you wish for?" Claire glanced at her boyfriend, a slight smile playing on her lips. "I'm not telling you." After the celebration, they finished the cake. It should have been time to pay and leave. But just as Claire was about to stand up, Leo stopped her. "Not yet. I want to take you somewhere." Then he took her hand and led her toward the back of the diner. Claire was caught off guard, thinking her boyfriend had had too much to drink and was causing trouble. She tried to pull him back. "Leo, even if it's my birthday, We can't just go breaking into people's houses. Leo was almost amused. He quipped, "Don't worry. The birthday girl is the boss. If the cops come, I'll take the blame." Then, right in front of the diner's owner, he continued to lead his girlfriend toward the back. Claire grew anxious, but she couldn't match her boyfriend's strength and could only follow him. A few steps further, she realized Leo was leading her up the fire escape behind the restaurant. Claire was stunned for a moment. Then, she couldn't help but feel curious. "Where are we going?" Leo just smiled mysteriously. "You'll know when we get there." They climbed the fire escape step by step. As they neared the top floor, he turned to Claire and instructed her, "Close your eyes first." Claire did as he said, suppressing her curiosity and obediently closing her eyes. She let Leo lead her by the hand, carefully continuing up the stairs. As they climbed, she murmured, "Leo, just a reminder, kidnapping beautiful young women is illegal. Oh, right, but if we sold you by the pound, you'd fetch a pretty penny." Ow! Before he could finish, he sucked in a sharp breath. Behind him, the girl, with her eyes still closed, had lifted her long leg and kicked him squarely in the shin with pinpoint accuracy. The consequences of a man running his mouth. She couldn't see a thing with her eyes closed. But because her boyfriend was holding her hand, she didn't feel scared or worried at all. Finally, Claire felt herself being led up 2 more steps onto a flat surface. Leo's smiling voice reached her ears. "You can open your eyes now." Her curiosity had reached its peak. As she opened her eyes, Claire started to ask reproachfully, "What are you up to now?" But the words died in her throat, because the sight that met her eyes was a world of baby's breath. Countless white and pale pink blossoms, clustered like stars on slender stems, were arranged in bouquet after bouquet, covering the entire rooftop patio. The flowers surrounded her, placing her at the very center. Strings of lights hung on the walls, and pillars cast a soft glow, making the sea of baby's breath look even more radiant. Claire was stunned. She instinctively covered her mouth with her hand, almost unable to believe her eyes. She heard footsteps beside her. Claire turned to see Leo, holding a large bouquet of baby's breath, smiling as he walked up to her. "Last time you gave them to me. This time, I'm giving them to you." At last year's freshman welcome gala, the girl had walked through the crowd, a bouquet of baby's breath in her hands, to present it to him on stage, causing a sensation in the auditorium. This year, on her birthday, their roles were reversed. The receiver of the flowers had become the giver. A single bouquet received was now returned as a galaxy of stars. Placing the flowers in Claire's arms, Leo looked at his girlfriend and smiled. "Do you like it?" Claire's eyes were slightly red. She nodded. "I love it." Then she hugged the bouquet tightly, looked up at Leo, and smiled. "Am I prettier, or are the flowers prettier?" Leo couldn't help but laugh. "Why do you think I chose baby's breath?" The girl paused. Then realization dawned on her. The meaning of baby's breath. "I brought you all the stars in the sky, and still found that they weren't as bright as you." Looking at her boyfriend, the warmth in Claire's eyes softened. "My big oaf is getting smoother, isn't he?" Leo waved his hand grandly. "That's nothing. I'm the perfect model of a high EQ boyfriend now." He wasn't just boasting, because there was another surprise. Leo walked to the edge of the rooftop and, right in front of Claire, pulled a box of fireworks out from a corner. Claire covered her mouth in surprise. "Fireworks?" Then realization dawned. "Is this also?" Leo grinned and finished her sentence. "Yep, there's a Gilded Phoenix fireworks nearby." Claire didn't know whether to laugh or cry. The value of the Gilded Phoenix brand just kept rising. It was on a killing spree. One birthday, Mr. Chien hadn't even shown up, yet his presence was felt everywhere. A certain young miss of the Sterling family was already starting to reconsider her plans. Maybe she should find someone else to walk her down the aisle at her wedding. With his girlfriend's worried reminders and instructions, Leo lit the fuse of a firework. As the fuse began to sizzle, he quickly backed away to stand beside Claire. He naturally wrapped an arm around her waist. The couple stood surrounded by the sea of baby's breath, patiently waiting for the show to begin. Then, with a whoosh, the first firework shot into the sky. A moment later, it exploded into a brilliant bloom of color against the night. Then came the second and the third. With muffled booms, one firework after another blossomed in the night sky, their brilliant colors reflecting off the sea of flowers on the rooftop. The boy and girl stood amidst the dazzling fireworks and the starry flowers, holding each other close. The scene was as timeless and beautiful as a painting. Claire looked up at the brilliant display, lost in a daze, and murmured softly, "It's beautiful." Then, she felt a slight, cool sensation on her neck. She turned her head in confusion, only to see her boyfriend placing something around her neck. He smiled at her. "See, does it suit you?" Claire instinctively looked down. It was a pendant. 2 interlocking platinum rings, one larger and one smaller, both studded with diamonds. It was delicate and exquisite, yet elegant. Claire was stunned, not quite processing it. "This is—" Leo looked at her as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. "A gift. It's my girlfriend's birthday. A high EQ boyfriend like me couldn't possibly forget to prepare a present, could I?" Then, he prompted her again, a little anxiously. "Take a good look. Does it suit you? If you don't like it, I can return it and get something else." Before he could finish, a fragrant breeze brushed his face. Claire had suddenly thrown herself at him, pressing her lips forcefully against his. "I'm not exchanging it. I love it." After the passionate kiss, they parted. The girl eagerly and carefully cupped the pendant in her hands, admiring it once more. Only then did she notice that the 2 interlocking platinum rings had engravings on the back. The smaller ring was engraved with the letters L and S, for Leo and Sterling. The larger ring had a line of English text, an unbreakable circle. She whispered the words to herself, savoring their meaning. Her eyes glistened with warmth. Beside her, Leo explained in a slightly embarrassed, quiet voice, "I saw some other really beautiful styles at the store, but the prices were just insane. Between the overtime pay for the Mako Entertainment art team and donating most of his own share of the Happiness profits to the Southwest relief effort, his funds were a little tight." He had seen more beautiful pendants at the jewelry store, but they were priced at $3,000 to $5,000, some even over $10,000. The spirit was willing, but the wallet was weak. Therefore, on his girlfriend's birthday, Leo truly felt a little guilty and ashamed. He couldn't help but continue his rambling explanation. "This one was $1,200. It's a bit cheaper, but the meaning is pretty good. And it was exactly what I had left after putting everything together. If I spent any more, I wouldn't have had enough for the flowers and fireworks, and we probably would have had to ask the diner owner if we could pay for our meal later." He mumbled on beside her. But as Claire listened, her eyes unknowingly began to well up with tears again. She gazed at her boyfriend, her eyes shining with unshed tears. Just as Leo finished his rambling, he looked up and saw Claire staring at him with red-rimmed eyes. He was instantly startled and fumbled around, looking for a tissue to help her. "Why are you crying?" "Don't cry. Just wait a little. Your boyfriend is about to strike it rich next month. I'll buy you something even better then." The next moment, the girl threw herself into his arms again, hugging him tightly. Feeling the dampness seeping into his shirt, he was so flustered he was practically sweating. "Maybe I can borrow some money from Mr. Chien." Before he could finish, he was cut off. "No need." Claire finally pulled back, her eyes still a little red, but she had already wiped away the tears. She sniffled, then looked at her boyfriend with a serious and solemn expression. "I love this one. I wouldn't trade it for anything, no matter how expensive." Leo finally felt a little relieved. "Okay, as long as you like it." Claire cut him off, correcting him. "I love it." Leo's eyes lit up. "Really? More than Blackie the Leo hammer?" The girl didn't hesitate. "What Leo hammer? Never heard of it." "Blackie the stuffed doll has been eliminated." Leo was suddenly energized and pressed on. "What about the thread of destiny bracelets?" The girl paused for a moment, but remained firm. "The pendant is better." The bodhisattvas at the chapel on Serenity Peak have been defeated. Full of enthusiasm, Leo challenged a higher difficulty. "What about my family's heirloom jade bangle?" This time, Claire hesitated for longer, but finally made her choice. The pendant. Incredible. Leo was absolutely ecstatic. It wasn't easy. The birthday present he'd picked had actually managed to beat all of those other contenders. That's my boy. All you single guys out there, take notes. This is the quality you get from a perfect score, high EQ boyfriend, and master gift picker. Buoyed by his triumphant victory, he made a grand conclusion. "So, that means from now on, my position in your heart is number 1, set in stone." The next second, the girl looked at him with a puzzled expression. "Huh? No, it's not." Meeting her boyfriend's suddenly dumbfounded gaze, Claire kindly explained, "The pendant is number 1. The bangle is 2nd. The thread of destiny is 3rd. And Blackie the stuffed doll is 4th. From now on, you're number 5. Leo, confused_handsome_man. JPG. The misunderstanding was cleared up. Ms. Bertha Sue's eyes had turned red because she was moved, and she was absolutely thrilled with her birthday present. Comrade Leo Hammer's ranking had not improved at all. He had dropped from Leo the 4th to Leo the 5th. The girl was still cradling the pendant, admiring it endlessly. The defeated handsome man was dejected. At this rate, it wouldn't be long before he became Leo the 6th. Seeing her boyfriend's annoyed expression, Claire couldn't help but laugh. She put down the pendant, cupped his face in her hands, and stood on her tiptoes to give him a comforting kiss. There! I love the gift. Thank you. A single kiss. It was enough to soothe his wounded soul. The easily satisfied man was immediately appeased. Then, a thought occurred to him, and he added with renewed spirit, right? I was the one who had them engrave the L and S. Claire smiled and nodded. It's very nice. She leaned in and gave him another rewarding kiss. He eagerly added, I have another idea. Since it's L plus S, why don't we call this pendant the Lethal Slaughter Soul-Reaping Golden Ring? Ow! Before he could finish, the girl bit him sharply on the lip as punishment. Soul-Reaping Golden Ring, my ass. Have you been reading too many fantasy novels? On the rooftop, the fireworks display was coming to an end. The boy and girl sat side by side, surrounded by the sea of baby's breath, quietly watching the last of the embers fade in the sky. Leo, we'll always be together. A moment of quiet warmth. Then his voice came again. By the way, there's one more gift. The girl turned her head, surprised, her eyes questioning. Leo leaned in and whispered secretively in her ear. Me? The next second, a flustered Claire bit his earlobe. You little pervert. You want to have your cake and eat it too, huh? Thanks to Sinlinen, Leoda, and Yueying Ruaji for the God tier certifications. Working hard on Monday. I'll try for a triple update. A new day. Thursday morning. As the first rays of bright sunlight pierced the clouds and morning mist, they fell upon the courtyard of the LNS house. Inside, the Slaughter couple had already washed up, dressed, and were sitting at the dining table, refreshed and eating breakfast. Leo would take a bite, then chuckle to himself. Then he seemed to pull a muscle in his back. He winced, but as he rubbed his overworked lower back, a look of deep satisfaction crossed his face. The only thing missing was a sign on his forehead that read, Worth IT. The lady of the house, sitting across from him, wasn't faring much better. Her mind was clearly not on her food. Every few seconds, she would look down to fiddle with her new pendant, take a bite of oatmeal, admire cependant, then pick up her phone and snap a demure selfie with its 8-megapixel camera. The result was that she had barely eaten half her bowl of oatmeal, but she had already taken over a dozen selfies with the pendant. And even that wasn't enough. The girl kicked her boyfriend under the table with her delicate foot, then held up the pendant and raised her eyebrows at him. Well, Leo, snapping out of his daze, heard her question and replied with unwavering certainty, beautiful. Claire's eyes curved into crescent moons, a pleased smile on her face. Not forgetting to return the favor, she offered her own critique of her boyfriend. Nice back. A round of mutual flattery. The couple was extremely satisfied. Only Mr. Chen, who had just come inside to take Reasonable out for a walk, looked on in confusion. He turned to the plump parrot perched on his shoulder and gossiped. What's the situation? Reasonable shot a disdainful look at the Slaughter couple at the table. He tilted his head toward the lady of the house. Woman, easy to fool, got a gift. L'impentant, happy idiot, short and to the point. Then he glanced at the master of the house. This time, Comrade Parrot cleared his throat and rattled off a series of technical terms. Level 1, 3, 5. Level 2, 4, 6. 4, 5, 6. Level 7, 7, 7, 7. Anyone else wouldn't have understood. But Mr. Chen, the previous owner of the vibrating friendship bed, understood instantly. All his confusion vanished. Mr. Chen looked at the Slaughter couple with a gaze full of gratification, appreciation, and admiration. Putting it to good use, Reasonable. He hummed a happy little tune and took Reasonable outside for their walk. As he left, he made a mental note to stop by his Gilded Phoenix pharmacy later. Young people have stamina, but you can't overdo it. He could bring his brother Leo some supplements later. A day where a certain Sterling Holdings chairman's position at the wedding grew even more precarious. After breakfast at the LNS house, the couple happily went to class together. Sitting in their advertising lecture, Leo thought back to the previous night's events and couldn't help but smile with satisfaction. The other 3 members of room 520, sitting beside him, watched him with suspicion. They huddled together, whispering, "What's up with him now? He was so badly injured before. Is he possessed again? Looks like his back is messed up too. Guess that training really is risky." Leo was completely unfazed by his roommate's commentary. Let them talk. Go right ahead. He had reached a whole new level. Did they know what level 7 meant? From now on, they could skip Leo the 6th and just call him Leo level 7. Meanwhile, the girls of room 205 were experiencing a similar situation. The first thing they noticed was that their campus queen roommate seemed to be in an exceptionally good mood. They had just opened their mouths to ask, "Claire, you're looking great today," when the girl, beaming, cut them off with a question of her own. "What? How did you know Leo gave me a pendant for my birthday?" Molly, Quinn, and Jade. Wait, they hadn't asked that. At lunch, the two dorms ate together. Leo was in high spirits, lecturing the three girls from room 205 on the importance of physical fitness for young people. Molly, Quinn, and Jade listened, completely bewildered. Meanwhile, the three guys from room 520 were busy showering their sister Bertha with compliments. That pendant is really something else. Of course, a gift from Leo would be perfect. Dylan, who couldn't speak, held up his whiteboard, on which he'd written two words, badass. Claire listened, smiling from ear to ear, and waved her hands dismissively. Eat. What's with all the flattery? The three underlings from room 520 finally breathed a sigh of relief and dug into their food. At the same time, they secretly wiped the sweat from their brows and grumbled to themselves. Well, that's because you, Sister Bertha, were practically shoving that pendant in our faces. After lunch, everyone was getting ready to head back to their dorms for a nap. As Leo stood up from the table, a thought seemed to strike him. He turned to Claire. "Hey, have we fed reasonable yet?" A look of realization dawned on Claire's face. "Oh, we haven't." Leo frowned, displaying the responsibility of the master of the house. "It's not good to let him go hungry." The girl nodded in decisive agreement. "Definitely not good." Leo thought it over seriously and finally made a solemn decision. "Then we should go home. It's a bit of a hassle, but it's for reasonable." The girl readily agreed. Reasonable. And so, under the dumbfounded gazes of their roommates, the couple linked hands and hurried off toward the east gate of the campus. The members of room 205 and 520 were left standing there, stunned. They looked at each other. Are they always this concerned about reasonable? They're in such a hurry. You'd think reasonable would starve to death if they were a minute late. Molly, as if remembering something, looked puzzled. Wait a minute, doesn't Mr. Chin usually feed him? Jade, watching the couple's retreating figures, adjusted the glasses on her nose, a thoughtful expression on her face. So, maybe it's not reasonable who's hungry. It was a spring afternoon. The breeze was gentle, the sun was bright, and everything was bursting with life. Mr. Chin, having just fed the plump parrot, was taking reasonable for a stroll around the neighborhood. Suddenly, he saw a familiar couple rushing toward him. They saw Mr. Chin and called out a hurried greeting. Mr. Chin. The parrot, seeing his master and mistress, excitedly flapped his wings to greet them. Father, mother, father, mother. But before he could fly over, the couple rushed past Mr. Chin as if they hadn't even seen their clumsy bird, heading straight for the LNS house. The plump parrot was left in a cloud of dust, utterly bewildered. Reasonable? Question mark. Only Mr. Chin watched their energetic figures disappear into the distance, a satisfied nod on his face. He stretched comfortably in the bright afternoon sun and sighed contentedly. Isn't this great? This is how people should live. Happy. The gentle spring sun. It slowly washed away the heavy grief of the past weeks. Life had to go on. The sun would rise again tomorrow, as it always did. For Leo and Claire, the burdens they had shouldered for the past month were finally being set down. But after everything they had been through, the two reborn souls had a new perspective. Inside the LNS house, as the afternoon sun streamed through the window, falling on the soft white bed in the master bedroom, the couple lay nestled together under the warm, comfortable covers. They were tired but content, feeling the comfort of each other's presence. They lay in silence for a long time. Only tiny dust motes danced and shimmered in the sunbeams. Claire stared at the ceiling, lost in thought. Leo, I think I'm going to start taking over things at Sterling Holdings. The sudden statement surprised Leo. He raised an eyebrow. Why the sudden rush to take over the family business? Claire thought for a moment before answering. Because if I have more power, I can do more things. I can help more people. Her words struck a chord with Leo, because what she had just said was, coincidentally, exactly what was on his own mind. A couple of reborn souls. Though they didn't know each other's secret, they still shared a common understanding. So Leo smiled. Okay, I support you, but does this mean I'll have to start calling you Miss Sterling now? He teased her lightly. Claire turned to him, propping herself up on one elbow and looking at him without blinking. Leo, if I become a CEO, will you feel pressured? Leo laughed. What's there to feel pressured about? My girlfriend is going from campus queen to CEO. How many guys would kill for that? I could write a novel called My Aloof Campus Queen CEO Girlfriend. It might even be a hit. But as soon as he said it, he paused, thought for a moment, and corrected himself. Actually, never mind. It probably wouldn't get published. Claire was curious. Why not? Leo's expression was deadpan. Because the content would be a little steamy. The words had barely left his mouth before he acted. Before his girlfriend had a chance to react, the re-energized man yanked the covers up over their heads. With a small cry of surprise from the girl, they tumbled back into the nest of blankets. The life of a couple. So ordinary, plain, and dull. The friendship bed began to vibrate gently. Level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7, 7, 7. Some things were said in jest. But Leo genuinely respected and supported his girlfriend's decision. Because, for him, it was the same. With great power comes great responsibility. In this new life, he was already happy with how things were. He didn't really need to become fabulously wealthy. After all, how much money was enough? But now his thinking had changed. It wasn't about making money for the sake of making money. But as someone who had been given a second chance, while living his own happy life, could he also do more to help others in need? When you're struggling, you look after yourself. When you're doing well, you look after the world. A Wallace family motto. Besides Ms. Bertha Sue was already on the fast track to taking over Sterling Holdings and reclaiming her CEO title. As the boyfriend of the great CEO Sterling, Leo Hammer couldn't fall behind. Friday, after his classes at Berkeley, Leo went to the art studio. He met with the #1 employee of Mako Entertainment. Isabella Zhao looked exhausted. She hadn't been sleeping well and hadn't had time to fix her hair, which was a mess. Though it still couldn't hide her striking beauty, she looked a little pitiful. Even Leo, the heartless capitalist, felt a pang of guilt. He had hastily assigned her team to handle the art for Happiness' new project, Brainiac Blitz. It had been a rush job. The intensity was high. The standards were demanding. After a solid month, the entire Mako Entertainment art team was exhausted. Isabella, as the team lead and project manager, had borne the brunt of the pressure. Anyone else would have probably had a mental breakdown and quit. But the it girl of the humanities department had gritted her teeth and pushed through. And the work she delivered was top-notch. A born workhorse. The quality was undeniable. Feeling genuinely bad, Leo thought about giving his star employee a bonus. But just as he was about to pull out his wallet, Isabella shook her head, her tone serious. You already paid me for the overtime. The rest was just part of my job. I only take what I've earned. I don't want anything else. Leo was a little surprised, and his admiration for her grew. He nodded decisively. All right, then I won't. He smoothly put his wallet away. The motion was flawless. Isabella was dumbfounded, her mind struggling to keep up. When she came to her senses, she couldn't help but mutter to herself, why doesn't he follow the script? I was just being polite. If he had insisted a little more, I would have taken it. Hearing her mumbled words, Leo couldn't help but laugh. If I'm giving it to you, just take it. Why make things so complicated? He was just teasing her. He was still going to give her the bonus. But when she saw him reaching for his wallet again, Isabella hesitated, then shook her head with determination. It's okay. I don't want it. She looked up at him seriously. I saw the Brainiac Blitz game on Happy Nest. That's the project we provided the art for, right? The trivia questions in the game probably helped some people in the Southwest. So, I feel like I contributed in my own way. Isabella concluded with a serious expression. That was for charity. A good deed shouldn't have a price tag. Leo was touched. Looking at his star employee, he remembered how he had lost his temper and said some harsh things to her when the project was in a crunch. He felt even worse. He brought up the incident and offered her a sincere apology. Isabella waved her hand magnanimously. It's fine. I was the one who messed up. You can yell at me if you need to. I'm not the type to hold a grudge. Leo thought for a moment. How about I let you throw me over your shoulder one time, to let off some steam? Isabella's eyes lit up like light bulbs. Well, now that you mention it, that's not a bad idea. A few moments later, in the art studio, the two of them stood in their stances. Here I come. Bring it. The next second, there was a cry of surprise, followed by the dull thud of a butt hitting a soft mat. A mournful, aggrieved complaint echoed through the studio. You tricked me again, followed by a series of embarrassed apologies. My bad. I reacted without thinking. How about a do-over? Isabella was furious. A do-over, my ass. Never again. Please request an update and send gifts. The main plot is moving forward. Things are about to get explosive. The it girl of the humanities department was easy to appease. As her boss, Leo ultimately had no choice but to take out his wallet and pay for Isabella's medical expenses for her sore. But When the count of $10 bills reached 6, Isabella's eyes lit up, unable to contain her excitement. At that point, he promptly stopped. He held back the 7th bill he was about to count out. $60. It was enough to turn his number one employee's sorrow into joy. She quickly pocketed the money, muttering, "Next time, it won't be this cheap. You'll have to add at least another 20. No, $40. Leo didn't know whether to laugh or cry. It felt like this girl's mind was completely fixated on money. If her rear end could take it, she could probably make a fortune getting thrown over his shoulder. Back to the topic at hand. The impromptu Brainiac Blitz project was mostly finished. It was time for the Mako Entertainment art team to get back on track and continue their work on the battle through the Heavens browser game. Isabella put aside her other thoughts and gave her boss a serious report. She briefed him on the current state of the team. The art team had now expanded to 8 people, including her as the team lead. That made 9 in total. Everyone was skilled, and after working together on the Brainiac Blitz project, their coordination had become much smoother. Therefore, the progress on the battle through the Heavens game should be twice as efficient going forward. Leo was satisfied with her report. When Isabella expressed some concern about the increased personnel costs now that the team had grown, Leo just waved his hand dismissively. "You just worry about the project timeline. Money is not an issue." His words nearly made her choke. After she recovered, she couldn't help but mutter under her breath, "Money is not an issue. Damn rich people. What's so great about being rich?" But the next second, she glanced at the wallet in his pocket and swallowed hard, her principles wavering. "Okay, being rich is pretty great. I wish I could talk to people like that." He had said it with a straight face in front of his employee. But in reality, for the current Leo, money was indeed an issue. Especially now that Mako Entertainment's team had expanded, with the art department doubling in size. The monthly salary expenses were becoming almost unsustainable. So, the most pressing task was to figure out how to make more money. After giving Isabella a brief outline of the work plan, Leo left the campus and took a cab to the office building on Winning Road. He was heading to the Happy Nest headquarters. He needed to see if he could squeeze some cash out of his old pal David Chung. As he walked through the lobby and up the stairs, he was greeted warmly by all the employees, new and old. These were the brilliant minds of the internet industry. The way they looked at their young mister. Wallace was with the reverence one would reserve for a god or an idol. He had casually thrown together a game project, Brainiac Blitz, and it had single-handedly boosted the website's popularity and user registration numbers to a whole new level. It had even earned public praise from several official media outlets for its contribution during the Southwest disaster. As a result, Happy Nest's status and fame, both within the industry and nationwide, had skyrocketed. The employees watched with awe as their young mister. Wallace went upstairs. Then they began to whisper excitedly among themselves. Something big always happens when Mr. Wallace visits. Maybe he has another amazing idea to discuss with Mr. Chung. I can't wait. On the second floor, in the CEO's office. Nothing. David Chung slammed his hand on the desk, his voice firm. Not a single drop left. He shot a sideways glance at his chief strategy officer, who was lounging on the sofa, his face full of disdain. "You have a nerve to ask me for your salary and your cut. The income we painstakingly saved up from Garden Grab last month was basically all donated to the Southwest. Weren't you the one who said we should lead by example and convinced me to donate my share along with yours?" Leo sighed. "You're right. What about this month's?" David rolled his eyes. "Gone too. Our daily user count is still exploding. We have to buy and install new servers every week. Factor in facility costs, personnel costs, marketing expenses, maintenance fees. Garden Grab's entire profit for the second half of the year is already allocated. You dare mention taking a cut? I guarantee the department heads will roll up their sleeves and come after you." Leo sighed again. The company is growing too fast. What a happy problem to have. By that calculation, there really wasn't a single cent of profit to be squeezed out of Happy Nest. Leo flopped onto the sofa without a care for his image, stared at the ceiling, and let out a dramatic sigh. "Isn't there a faster way to make money?" David scoffed. "Robbing a bank is fast. Why don't you try that?" "Oh, right. The way you sold me that domain was pretty fast, too. My old company, Nexus, is working on some new microblogging service. They went to register a domain, but it looks like someone already snatched it up. If you could somehow get your hands on that domain, you could make a fortune." "Huh," David laughed, pleased with his own humor. But on the sofa, the other man sat up as if waking from a dream. He slapped his forehead. "That's right. I forgot about that." He looked up at David. "Then help me get in touch with them. Tell them to make me an offer." David stared at him, dumbfounded. Question mark. He couldn't process it for a moment. He looked at Leo again, bewildered. Leo stood up from the sofa and clapped his old friend on the shoulder with a sincere expression. Thanks. When the domain sells, I'll give you a $500 finder's fee. David was stunned. Holy shit. I was just kidding. You actually have it? Suddenly, the money problem had a solution. On the way home from the office, Leo was in such a good mood that he couldn't help but hum a little tune. And when he got back to the LNS house, there was another surprise waiting for him. Mr. Joe had brought back the Maybach from the repair shop. In the front yard, the familiar black Maybach gleamed in the setting sun, shiny and new. Honorary little my, a glorious return. Maybach, upright hero go. Seeing his battle-hardened comrade back in top form, the plump parrot immediately swooped down. He landed on the hood ornament and began his familiar, excited chant of giddy up. Giddy up. Leo and Claire were also happy and relieved to see it. After all, it had been a true hero during that harrowing night on Spirit Springs Mountain. Leo smiled and thanked the retired Special Forces soldier for going to the trouble of bringing the car all this way. He kindly invited him to stay. Mr. Joe, why don't you stay for dinner? Don't worry, I'll cook. But Mr. Joe just shook his head and declined, saying he had to get back to the city. As he was leaving, however, he looked from Leo to Claire and then back again. The retired soldier's heart was heavy with complex emotions. He clapped Leo on the shoulder and, after a long moment, managed to choke out a single sentence. You, be safe. That one sentence could be interpreted in at least 3 or 4 different ways. Mr. Joe left, his heart a mix of emotions. Leo was left in the yard, trying to puzzle out the meaning behind the old soldier's heartfelt warning. He felt baffled and confused. Claire walked over. What did Mr. Joe say to you? Leo scratched his head. Nothing much. He just told me to be safe. A small question mark appeared over Claire's head as well. Safe from what? Leo was just as puzzled. He stroked his chin, speculating, maybe about driving? Driving, regular driving, or the other kind? Claire eyed her boyfriend. Are you thinking about something inappropriate again? Leo immediately protested his innocence. What? No, Mr. Joe was the one being vague. Then a thought seemed to strike him. He looked at his girlfriend. About our thing. You didn't let Mr. Joe know, did you? Claire froze, her cheeks flushing slightly. She gave her boyfriend a light, flustered slap. Why would I tell anyone about that? Leo breathed a sigh of relief. Good. We especially can't let Mr. Joe or your dad find out. Claire thought for a moment and nodded in agreement. As a daughter, it was easy for her to imagine how a certain Chairman Sterling would react if he ever heard about it. Charles Sterling would probably have a heart attack on the spot. Then she shot a sideways glance at her boyfriend. Just make sure you don't go blabbing about it. Leo waved his hands dismissively. Don't worry, I would never do something like that. The only person who knew was that guy who couldn't afford cigarettes, and he had only guessed. But it was just one guy. A minor issue. No big deal. But now that Little My was back, having a car would make it much more convenient to get around and do things. Looking at the Maybach parked nearby, an idea came to Claire. She turned to Leo. Perfect. Tomorrow's the weekend. Let's drive to the chapel. I need to go fulfill a vow. Leo nodded happily. Okay. The next day, Saturday, in the morning, the couple got up early. After washing up and eating breakfast, they took Reasonable with them and drove to Serenity Peak on the other side of the city outskirts. The sky was clear. The spring day was beautiful. They drove the Maybach up the mountain. The roadside was covered in wildflowers, bursting with life. They parked the car halfway up. The rest of the way had to be walked. Having been here once before, Leo and Claire knew what to do. They got out of the car with their parrot and began to stroll up the mountain path at a leisurely pace. Unlike the heavy snow of last December, 6 months had passed. As the couple climbed the mountain again, both their relationship and their state of mind were completely different. The parrot flapped its wings, flying back and forth above their heads, letting out a series of gleeful squawks. Ugh. Then he spotted a pretty female sparrow up ahead. The parrot's eyes lit up. He shot off like a rocket. Hey, beautiful, wait up, wait up. Leo and Claire couldn't help but laugh. They exchanged a look, and naturally, their hands found each other's. Feeling happy and relaxed, they continued their walk up the mountain, side by side. The familiar summit of Serenity Peak. The familiar old stone chapel. It was probably still early, as there were few visitors. The chapel was quiet and peaceful. The ancient pine tree in the courtyard stood tall and green, its presence exuding a tranquil, zen-like quality. As the boy and girl entered the temple, the branches of the pine tree swayed gently. It was as if it recognized old friends and was welcoming them back. Claire led Leo into the main hall. Amidst the swirling incense smoke, the statue of a bodhisattva sat on a lotus throne, a faint smile on its face. When it saw the couple enter the hall, the smile seemed to stiffen a little. These two again. Claire took 2 bundles of incense from his side, handed one to Leo, and then knelt on a cushion. Leo glanced at his girlfriend, then at the statue on the lotus throne, and knelt beside her. He didn't really believe in Buddhism or Taoism. He was just here to give his girlfriend some peace of mind. He picked up the incense. Not having much experience, he didn't know what to say, so he just addressed the bodhisattva. "I'm paying my respects. You do you." The bodhisattva. Beside him, Claire shot her boyfriend an exasperated look. She, however, straightened her back with sincere piety, closed her eyes, clasped her hands together, and bowed deeply before placing her incense in the burner. After she had finished her vows, Claire told Leo to go outside for some fresh air. Once her boyfriend had left, and she was alone in the hall, Claire looked up and met the gaze of the statue on the lotus throne. The girl thought for a moment, then spoke. "Last time was pretty effective. When I have a chance, I'll donate some new floor tiles for the chapel." The bodhisattva smiled, its expression seeming to soften. The girl studied the statue, a thoughtful frown on her face. "The gold leaf is looking a little worn. I could have a new layer applied." The bodhisattva's smile seemed to bloom with delight. After rattling off a few more potential arrangements, the girl finally turned to leave, under what was now the bodhisattva's affectionate, successor-like gaze. But just before she stepped out of the hall, she seemed to remember something. She paused, turned back, and looked at the statue on the lotus throne again. "By the way, I might have caused a little trouble for you. It's not a big deal, is it?" The bodhisattva's compassionate smile was unshakable. Its golden body seemed to radiate a profound, inscrutable power in the morning light. The girl nodded, reassured. "Good. It's nothing major. As long as you can handle the Trinity, you'll be fine." The bodhisattva's smile froze on its face. After fulfilling her vow, they left the chapel. On the drive home, Claire sat in the passenger seat of the Maybach, feeling light and cheerful. Leo, driving, glanced over at his girlfriend and asked curiously, "What did you and the bodhisattva talk about? You seem so happy." Claire's lips curved into a smile, but her tone was casual. "Nothing much. Just gave a little pep talk." Then the girl stretched comfortably and turned to her boyfriend. "What's the plan for this afternoon?" Leo waved his hand grandly. "No plans. The weekend is for relaxing. Time to lie back and do nothing." That was the plan. But when they got home and had lunch, before the couple could even begin to enjoy their weekend bliss, Leo received several phone calls in a row. The first was from David Chung. He said he had gotten in touch with his old company, Nexus, and they would set up a meeting sometime next week. The plan to make a quick buck from the domain was moving forward. That was good news. The second call was from Cheryl Chun, the head of the arts department in the humanities school. She wanted to ask Leo for a favor. Or rather, she wanted to ask the Slaughter couple for a favor. The university's official magazine was preparing its next issue and was planning a special feature on outstanding students. They wanted to invite some popular and personable Berkeley students to do a photo shoot for the magazine cover, which would also serve as promotional material for the next academic year's admissions. The first piece of news was good. The second was a little harder to judge. And the third and final call was unexpectedly from Dean Evans, the dean of students at Northwood High. It had been almost half a year. On the other end of the line, the dean's laughter was as hearty as ever. "Leo, how have you been? Everything good with your studies? The final exams are coming up again soon. Your alma mater is planning an event. We're going to bring the top 50 seniors from this year's class for a tour of Berkeley to give them a little motivation before the big test. Your old homeroom teacher, Mr. Harrison, and I will be leading the group. We're coming next week. You and Claire, as our famous honorary alumni, will have to help show them around." The call ended. Claire, who had just come out of the kitchen with 2 sodas, saw the dazed look on her boyfriend's face and was surprised. "What's wrong?" Leo put down his phone and turned to her, his heart filled with 1,000 emotions. "It's a lot to process. I don't even know where to begin. Daily request for updates and gifts. It was a lot to process. A tangled mess. He had to sort through it one thread at a time." That evening, Leo went into the study, sat down at his desk, opened his computer, and logged into the domain marketplace, a site he hadn't visited in a long time. He had bought 2 domains from that domain flipper, Chunke. One, Kaisen001.com. He had sold to David Chung for $200,000. The other one was still left, Weibo.com. Only a seasoned internet user from his past life would know just how valuable that domain was, and how much the official Weibo Com domain was really worth. As someone reborn, Leo knew it even better. In his memory, the Happiness domain had sold for a few $100,000. But between 2008 and 2009, when Nexus bought the official Weibo domain, the transaction price was a cool one, $2 million. He wondered if old Chun K would cry his eyes out when he found out. Right now, Leo was already starting to plan. $2 million. Even if the price fluctuated a bit. Once the deal was done, how should he spend it? No more licking the yogurt container lid. Buy 2 pairs of shoes. Wear one, throw one away. Buy 2 houses. Live in one, leave one empty. Buy 2 girlfriends. Oh wait, just 1 girlfriend. That's enough, that's enough. He was already starting to feel the happy burden of wealth. He reined in his thoughts. Opening his inbox on the marketplace platform, Leo saw that he had already received a number of inquiries and messages. It was just that after selling the Happiness domain, he hadn't paid any attention to it. It had been so long since he'd logged in that he had completely forgotten about this windfall. He scanned his inbox. There were all sorts of inquiries. Some made offers, others were just testing the waters. But Leo didn't see any messages from Nexus. That was normal. Looking at the messages on the screen, Leo smiled. Given Nexus's size, if they revealed who they were, the seller would undoubtedly demand an exorbitant price. Domain trading was a psychological game between buyer and seller. Nexus probably thought they were being patient. Unfortunately for them, they were dealing with someone who had been reborn. 6 months ago, he had managed to sell the Happiness domain for $200,000 to David Chung, and even swindled a chunk of initial equity out of him. Now, faced with a rich, clueless mark like Nexus, if he didn't fleece them for all they were worth, it would be an insult to the name Leo Hammer. As Leo was busy devising a strategy to completely bamboozle the Nexus representative when they met. Outside the study, a pitter-patter of footsteps came up the stairs. The sound grew closer. Soon, the study door opened, and Claire's head popped in. Leo, help me decide what to wear for the magazine photo shoot. The second matter. The photo shoot for the university magazine's outstanding student feature. According to Cheryl Chun from the arts department, the feature would select 1 or 2 students from each school at Berkeley, and their photos would be displayed together in a special section. This had unintentionally turned it into a competition between the different schools. Even the deans and directors of the various schools were taking it seriously, instructing their arts departments to choose their representatives carefully. They wanted to ensure that the photos of their students in the magazine outshone all the others. Initially, when Leo heard about it, he wanted to politely decline. I'm not really the right person for this. Our school has plenty of handsome guys and beautiful girls. What about Lily Liu? On the phone, Cheryl had praised him to the high heavens. Lily Liu is one of them. But we can submit 2 people. And who says you're not right for it? Your looks and charisma are perfect. If you clean up a bit, you could easily be the it boy of the humanities school. If we're being bold, you could even go for Berkeley's campus king. After a barrage of flattery, she finally revealed her true intentions. If you really don't think you can handle it alone, why don't you bring your Claire along? You 2 can take the photos together. Then the credit will go to our humanities school. Leo didn't know whether to laugh or cry. So that was it. The long map of Yin was just a distraction to get to the dagger. His status as that boy didn't matter. He was just a package deal. The main goal was to secure the great campus queen, Claire Sterling. On the spot, Leo didn't give Cheryl a direct answer. He just said he would discuss it with his girlfriend. He had assumed that Ms. Bertha Sue wouldn't be interested. But when he hung up and told Claire about it, her eyes immediately lit up. Couples photos. Leo quickly waved his hands. No, what are you thinking? You can't take couples photos for a university magazine feature. Just a normal photo together. The purely platonic kind. The girl looked thoughtful. Platonic is fine too. Leo had a feeling something wasn't right. Wait, the platonic you're talking about and the platonic I'm talking about don't seem to be the same thing. Claire looked up, her expression innocent. Really? You must be overthinking it. Who knew what Ms. Bertha Sue was plotting in that head of hers? In any case, she made the decision on the spot. We'll do it. Leo eyed his girlfriend suspiciously. Why are you so enthusiastic about this? The girl's face was a mask of sincerity. As Berkeley students, it's perfectly reasonable to contribute to the university magazine. And so, that brought them to tonight. The photo shoot wasn't until Monday. But tonight, Claire was already busy in her bedroom, rummaging through her closet. And working alone wasn't enough. She came downstairs to get Leo's opinion. For a guy, watching a girlfriend try on clothes was a special kind of torture. Leaning against the study doorway, Claire counted on her fingers as she planned. I could try a few different styles of clothes. I'll need to coordinate the accessories. Then she looked at her boyfriend, seeking his opinion. If I wear the pendant, the bangle, and the thread of destiny bracelet all at once, will it look a little too flashy? Leo, channeling his inner high EQ boyfriend, declared, "As long as you like it. You're so gorgeous, you look good in anything." He laid on the flattery without batting an eye. His main goal was to end this quickly and avoid being dragged into hours of fashion show. Claire looked at her boyfriend, as if seeing right through his little scheme. "All right, you get back to work. I'll go try a few things on my own." Then she casually turned and left. Watching his girlfriend walk out of the study, Leo let out a breath he didn't know he was holding and patted his chest in relief. He had dodged a bullet. He was just about to get back to work when he heard the girl's voice from the living room, seemingly talking to herself. "I have quite a few pairs of stockings. Maybe I should try those on too." Tier 2 keyword triggered. Leo's ears instinctively perked up, and his head turned toward the sound. The next second, the girl let out another casual, light exclamation. "Oh dear, how did this one get a rip?" Tier 1 keyword detonated. With a whoosh, Leo shot out of the study. When it comes to fashion, I actually have some professional opinions to share. He had planned to work a little longer. He had been thinking about how to ensure the survival of the students from Northwood High during their upcoming visit. But now he couldn't be bothered. Survival? What survival? There were 50 of them coming. A few casualties, say 5, 6, 7, or 8, wouldn't be unacceptable.